And Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the City.
Very good morning to you. How are you doing? The 20th day of January 2020. This is, what do we say? The day that the Lord has made? We shall be glad, we shall rejoice and be glad in it. Right? How was your weekend, Ndu?
Good, actually, I think. I got some work done, so it was great.
Some work?
Yes.
Are you running an independent radio station?
Yeah, what is this you're doing?
Well, that's for me to know and for you to find out.
You shall work within the premises of the Standard Group.
Who told you it was not for the Standard Group? Do you see assumptions?
So what is this work that you're doing?
Don't worry.
Right? Is it sanctioned
Absolutely.
by the state?
Talking about things that were sanctioned or not sanctioned by the state in terms of what is allowed and not allowed. Let's not even go there.
Has the council okayed it?
Has the council okayed it?
Of councils and initiatives and experts, committees of experts.
Was there consultation?
Okay, how are you, Eric?
I'm fine, thank
Good.
you.
And City, how might you be this morning?
I am well.
Let's divert this attention also. How was your weekend?
Good.
Good?
Yes.
Fantastic.
He rested.
Yes, I did.
So did I.
It was a restful working weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Of course, there's a lot that also happened, of course, beyond you working. Others who rested. You are not the only one. So people who work on weekends are politicians and preachers. If you're none of those two, then you need to explain to us why you should be working. In this country, we've got labor laws. And if we just don't follow our own labor laws, then...
The labor laws are supposed to act as a guide, Eric,
Not an edict.
Yes, especially with regard to the working hours. They are minimum working hours. Okay, maximum, Sasa, it is, as we say, your own shawty.
It's your choice.
The choice is yours.
The problem I'm having with people working for the weekend is it gives those who'd like to extend working days some ammunition.
People or Ndu?
Those who are working on weekends.
Right.
Let's take a look at the headlines. What's covered in the headlines?
Well, it seems that Ruto was a bit of a sourpuss this morning, or actually maybe yesterday, over the weekend, or for some time, because he says, stop insulting me at BBI rallies. Maybe insult me elsewhere, but not at BBI rallies, but okay. Ruto tells Jubilee and ODM leaders. Deputy President fights off claims he's opposed to reforms, challenges rivals to focus on national priorities, instead of turning weekend rallies into conclaves for attacking him.
Is it possible to lead by example?
Thank you, CT, because I mean, really, who started it? If we're going to go childhood playground, stop insulting me. Well, who started it? Really? If we're going to go that way, especially this statement that he talks about. When
Has Ruto been insulting anyone at BBI rallies?
No. He said, let's focus on national priorities.
That's the bit that I have picked up.
Yes.
These national priorities, can he lead by example?
By example.
Please?
You know, so if we're going to focus on national priorities, let's look at the ones maybe that he has focused on.
The insult bit, that's politicking.
Yes,
it's neither
gonna
here,
happen,
it's
yeah.
neither here nor there. Yes. And whether someone is against you and every utterance they make is considered an insult, that's also neither here nor there. But national issues.
National issues, it would be nice to see which ones he has focused on, essentially.
You see
all of them. He talks about the Big Four agenda everywhere he goes.
Thank you, Eric. I think you've got...
He brings you to the attention of, let's focus on the Big Four agenda. The president is implementing the Big Four agenda.
Yes, of course he does. You see, the thing is, this Kenyan, should we say, this unique Kenyan method of solving issues by talking at them doesn't cut it. It doesn't... The Kasarani Mwiki Road cannot be fixed by words. The Kawangware Road, all these issues that we keep talking about, no amount of talking will sort those things out. Something has to be done. Yes, so, yes, as the deputy president, he has spoken about it, but a lot of what we hear is talk.
What, you want to see him driving a grader? Fixing a road.
Actually,
That's
no.
not what he does.
It's not just him. What we read is reported, and what one can say is that a lot of what he says, given his position, is probably reported more than what other people say.
Yeah.
So I'm going by what is reported. Now, in his statements when he is talking in public, there are always issues regarding development and what the government has done and what people should focus on. All right?
Yep.
If the discussion is focusing on development issues, and every time you read beyond that statement, there is a political issue, then I have every right to say, kindly lead by example, because this is talk, and this talk isn't going to help solve the problems we have. And these problems really are many.
Well, sticking with the DP, he is seeking a deal with Kalonzo ahead of the 2022 poll. He says, I worked with him, Raila, before and made him prime minister. I stepped out and gave him to Kalonzo. The mistake I did was that I didn't inform Kalonzo that Raila can't win.
That's the only mistake. I gave him to. He makes it sound like he's passing out candy to children in terms of, and Raila Odinga is this particular candy. You know, here I made him the prime minister and then I gave him to Kalonzo. I mean, really, what are we talking about now?
No, what he means basically is that he campaigned for Raila and Raila.
Why don't we look at that entire story from the very beginning and look at how things are likely. Kalonzo and Ruto were on the same side that same year, that 2006, 2007, before we actually got to the election.
Yep.
Oh, Kalonzo and Ruto joined the ODM brigade late. It wasn't, and remember, Kalonzo went and formed his ODM-K, if you recall correctly.
Yes.
All right? So, and that is what enabled him to become the vice president. Because, yes, he had support from his community. But remember, history is important in this issue. Indeed, Ruto campaigned. He did.
Yep.
But as to whether he was actually campaigning for Raila or campaigning for himself, it's difficult. It's like
nobody campaigns for just one person. You campaign for that person, but also hoping that you get something out of it.
Now, that is a fair assessment of the situation. So, but to state, if we're to believe what is being written there, you're talking about someone who has a whole history of politicking in this country. Probably began around the time when probably the deputy president was still in school. Okay? And then after that history, the man was detained, the man was imprisoned. Also, you come up and start saying that you gave this person something. That's pushing the envelope a little bit.
He pushed the votes for. No, you can also run away from the fact that because of Ruto's campaigning, especially in the Rift Valley region, he got the votes for ODM.
Actually, no. There's a different narrative that Ruto joined the ODM brigade because the votes in the Rift Valley were already going Raila's way.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, it is so. There was a talk about Arab Bay. That was the politics of the time, and people in the Rift Valley, it is said, were going to support Raila anyway. So it is right. It was Ruto who was perhaps back
who joined the bandwagon,
the tide that was heading in a certain direction.
So you wouldn't say that he's the one who popularized the Arab Bay issue and all?
No, it came before he.
If that was the case, then why didn't Raila get the same that kind of support 5 years down the road?
Because the people who voted for him didn't get what they thought they were going to get. It's not even complicated.
Yeah. Huh?
Yes.
And they followed Ruto.
Yeah, and they went a different direction.
Yes. So this is it. We had campaigned for him. We campaigned for him vehemently on the ground. Ruto was in the negotiating team, the Kofi Annan negotiating team for ODM.
Yes, he was.
Was instrumental in pushing this agenda that ensured that we had a peace deal that had a good position for the
Between him and Martha Karua, who do you think pushed for a peace deal? Those people are considered hawks, man. The two of them, if you read reports
there
and talk
you
that
go.
From there,
so
the two of them were the most divisive elements in that entire discussion.
Because each of them was pushing for a strong position, and that was Ruto's brief in this committee. Make sure that we don't get shortchanged. So he had to push a hard bargain. And that was it. That's what led to a proper hard bargain being we are sharing a government.
The point that I'm getting at here is that with politicians, there is hardly ever a point of philanthropy. There are idealists who begin as idealists, and somewhere along the line they realize that looking after number one is not such a bad thing. Okay? There are many people who begin as idealists. You're talking about freedom fighters. Those people who are idealists. Some of these people who are noted as being the part of the second brigade for the second liberation, many of them were idealists. And How do we prove they were idealists? Many of them died in poverty because they didn't focus on accumulating wealth.
Wealth, exactly.
They preached a certain gospel and lived by it.
Of how it should be, of how the
How
nation
things
or the
should run.
area should
Yes,
run.
and it's
Exactly.
clear they meant it because they didn't seem to pursue anything else.
Very true.
Now, all I'm saying is that in politics, as they say, there's also, all is fair in love as in war. Okay? Anytime a politician says something, it is something that is going to suit their purpose. And that is all. There is no exception here.
We shall come back and talk about the BBI and the meeting that happened, the political meeting that happened over the weekend. In the meantime, let's take a look at what else is in the headlines. How Kenyans may have lost 29 billion shillings in SGR tender. This is on page 12 of the Standard.
Tell us how.
So,
How have we managed to do this again? Just
Again.
when we thought
Things were
it
getting
was safe to
better.
get out of the water, yes.
let's start with the good news. I saw it somewhere that the SGR actually has made an increase in profit. We're making some good progress.
How does that help with the repayment of the loan?
You wait. Of course, from profit, are we able to have more money
I
to pay the loan?
apologize. Please continue.
Yeah. Pricing of the standard gauge railway project may have been inflated by nearly 29 billion shillings, according to fresh details from analysis of the tender documents. Kenya Railways Corporation allowed the contractor to adjust cost of the civil works by 11 billion shillings. That's a 3.5% increase, and 2.7 billion shillings, a 2.5% for the accompanying facilities. That is not only part of a long list of price adjustments even before the construction of the 372 billion shillings project started.
Hey, good Lord.
So the CRBC, this is a China Road and Bridge Construction, presented feasibility study to Kenya Railways on June 26, 2012. A negotiating team was formed, proposals were discussed, approvals from the relevant ministries, Attorney General sought. Kenya Railways Board of Directors approved the project, commercial agreements were negotiated, the contractor was notified of the award, and the contract was signed. This contract was awarded on July 11th, 2012. So this is where we are talking about several price adjustments here and there. 11 billion here, 2.7 billion there, totaling 29 billion in terms of adjustments. Catering for costs.
Of course.
You know what those costs are.
Of course. You know, there's a certain...
How would you, if you are the contractor, how would you go about it? Costs have been presented to you.
Well, I don't think the choice is really that difficult. Do you want the project or not? That's really it.
That's it.
Because what you've mentioned, the terms and conditions for this project.
Yeah.
That's what you've just done. So we'll give it to you. But this is how you're going to go about it.
Yeah.
You're going to escalate this. You're going to escalate
Put it up
this.
there.
You're going to escalate
Yeah.
this.
And then it'll pass.
And then we will pass it. But you know something? It will catch up with these people.
I'm telling you.
Now, you've heard me say this before and say, it never... Actually, it does. You may think it doesn't.
It does.
There was a gentleman called Dos Santos who ruled Angola for 38 years. 38 years. In those years...
He brought peace to Angola.
Of course he did. Actually, there was peace even before him, but he cemented the peace.
There was a civil war when he was taking over. Remember, with Jonas Savimbi and the rest.
Yes. But it wasn't just Savimbi. Believe me, there was a president even before him. It wasn't as though there was no peace during his time. There was peace. But the point I'm trying to make is this. He cemented the peace. This is the point I'm trying to make. And he made the country stable. 38 years is too long for anybody to rule. You actually get to forget that you're elected and you begin to think the country belongs to you.
Yeah.
And you can do anything you want. That's why mature democracies have a term limit. They long understood this. It's not that the person is inherently bad, but that much power over such a period of time will corrupt that person. Now, he is no longer with us, at least not in this realm. At least he's not visibly so. But the point of the matter is this. He has a daughter called Isabella, who for the longest time was considered the richest woman on this continent, right? The problems that lady is facing currently, I would not wish on my worst enemy.
There you go.
Simple things, an audit, a query, and how did you acquire this? And how did you... And there are records of how some of these things were acquired. Everything that they say, from owning shares in state corporation, oil and so forth, that For me, it's neither here nor there, really. Okay? It's like asking how it is powerful people in the government or in previous government owned shares in Safaricom or Airtel. That to me is neither here nor there. But when it comes to people being displaced, people who are in a rural setting, to pave way for a project that they don't benefit from, and they now live in squalor to the point where, as documented by BBC, they are living in places which essentially is a sewer.
Right, whereby you wouldn't find vermin.
Yes.
I think that was one of the quotes from that
Yes,
BBC.
vermin wouldn't live there.
Yeah. Seriously.
Even,
Bloodbath.
Yeah.
even they know this one can kill us.
Yeah.
And vermin are usually responsible for killing human beings.
Right.
So what does that tell you?
Good Lord.
And when asked, he says she acquired everything by hard work. I heard it and I said, my goodness.
She must have worked quite hard, this one.
No, she must have worked in this country, because those are the sort of statements you hear people saying, but I worked for it. You say, okay. We don't doubt you worked for it. Explain to us how cumulatively it got here. Because clearly, even the process of mismanaging funds requires work.
The thing is,
And you need
such
to be a bit
people,
clever, no?
such people, let's call out the West as well. Such people work with companies and financial institutions from those very same countries that are now complaining.
They do.
For example, Isabella dos Santos has even given talks at the London Business School.
Of course she has.
So,
On managing wealth, no less.
yes,
She
on how
has
to manage
actually.
wealth.
Absolutely.
Helping young entrepreneurs to rise and, know how to manage a business. She is, being touted there as very, very strong and
She is strong.
Powerful woman.
She is
a woman
powerful.
at the head of big conglomerates.
She is
And
all
also
that.
understand that her control is not just wielded over her businesses, but her control goes as far as the oil reserves in the country.
Yes.
And for you then to understand and say, look, if they didn't have this precious resource, we wouldn't have as much attention from the spotlight on her as we do now.
As we do now.
Looking at that side of it as well is quite important.
My point is not even complicated. If you want to understand it further, just go down south and look at what Zuma is going through right now. Don't take it too far.
Things will catch up.
If you think that is pushing the envelope, look at what's happening to Grace Mugabe now and her family. I'm simply saying something of this nature. When you disadvantage people for whom you have a mandate to ensure a good livelihood for, believe me, the outcome, as I said, the writing is on the wall. Yes, you may think it isn't, but it is. In this country, all that is required is that lifestyle audit to be made public and to be followed. Nothing more complicated than that.
Right.
And you will hear people screaming to the hills.
This 29 billion, we'll see it.
You will see,
We'll see where it went.
Because for sure, it wasn't something mythical that disappeared with the dawn. No. The money was there. It was paid out. Some people got it. Money doesn't misappropriate itself. Some human beings have to be
involved at
its
some
movement.
point.
Yes.
Absolutely. And just as the same thing we see with things appearing or reappearing. I mean, there was no money to build a road in Mwiki Kasarani. But then suddenly last week, Thursday, 300 million
Is available.
Is
What
available.
contractors on
What
the
you may
ground?
not know is that prior to all this and the rains, that road was actually quite good. It was smooth. As we say in Kenya, it was new. Okay? And then it rained. And then you asked, hey, what on earth? Did they paint this road or did they actually build it?
But then also, if you step back a few years, you'll remember that just about 10 years ago, that road was in the same state as it is now.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
Same people
2012,
had
yeah.
complained about this road a couple of years ago. So it was fixed. It was newer, but the newer was basically just for show.
The newer was newer.
Newer was for show.
But I mean, highlighting the fact that I think we're going to see quite a number of these because look, Mwiki Kasarani is an example of how protests definitely do work. I mean, the world over. And I think also it has a ripple effect on other areas because we will see more. I mean, yeah, predictor Monday, yes, absolutely. We're definitely going to see more of these because I think the other areas where citizens are suffering in terms of road usage, going to realize, oh, okay, this is what it takes in order for us to get our road fixed and then our businesses can thrive again. And we don't have to suffer, getting from one place to another. Absolutely. We're going to go into the street for 4 or 5 days and let's see what that is going to produce. And that, I'm sure in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see more in terms of an uprising of this nature.
I saw the MP for one of the Dagoretis. You know, there are many Dagoretis now. There's Dagoreti North, South. So it's not North. North, I think, is Simba Arati. The other Dagoreti, KJ.
KJ, yes, he was
KJ
with
with the
folks.
Kura folks talking about the rehabilitation of Naivasha Road and Kikuyu Road.
Interestingly enough, on Friday.
Same
no less.
Friday. So you're wondering, so why does Kura have to wait for political delegations to come and
Actually, why
remind you why you need to do
why
yours?
must they wait? Now, again, it's odd that we keep discussing this thing, but we have to. You know why? It's a manifestation of this national malaise, this illness that is manifesting itself in these things, and it's national. You look at a government body, something of this sort springs up. Everywhere, whether it's a cereals board, whether it's our roads, whether it's SGR. I mean, this thing, it's like it's everywhere. Just when you think it is okay, then you'll find KRA has sprung up with something. Just when you think, okay, then you'll find pipeline. And you're thinking, my goodness, is there anywhere in this country where this infestation doesn't exist?
Can't we have peace?
Yes.
Okay,
Can people just do what they're supposed to do?
And everybody just get along.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry to make it a little bit worse this Monday, but unfortunately, Kenya needs 1 trillion shillings to revive stalled projects. Okay? Hundreds.
Stalled projects.
Yes.
Okay.
Hundreds. These are the projects that we were told the money was borrowed for and it's going to take years to see. But hundreds of mismanaged infrastructure projects have stalled and it will cost the country around $10 billion to revive them, according to an IMF report, no less. The report's findings point to a growing power struggle at the head of government, really. Amid mounting public anger over ballooning state debt and a series of graft scandals, President Uhuru Kenyatta last Tuesday confirmed acting Finance Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani in the post after its previous incumbent, Henry Rotich, was charged with financial misconduct, etc., etc. However, it is said that an estimated 500 projects, 500, no less 180 in Meru alone, around half of the total, had ground to a halt due to non-payment to contractors, insufficient allocation of funds to projects, and litigation cases in court. The state would need to raise around 1 trillion shillings to complete them, the report said. Kenya has ramped up public investment projects since 2010, but that increase occurred without enough screening for project viability and readiness before they enter the budget. Now, this is the crux, and this, for me, is what we shouldn't be dealing with when we're talking about planning and governance and policy. Occurred without enough screening for project viability and readiness before they entered the budget.
So people are just saying, what project do you think of?
We need this. Bring one. What do you want to do?
What do you think? What do you want to do? All right, so come
Bring it. Eric, what do you want?
Add it to the list.
All
Bring
right,
it.
why don't we talk about amounts before the project?
Yeah.
2 billion.
2 billion. That's a good
Project, I'm coming up with it.
That's a
Okay.
good
Oh,
one.
you
Yeah.
want 2 billion? We don't know what the project is, but bring.
No, the project exists. I just need to present it to you.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know it's
I know
costing
it-
2
I
one.
know
You
billion.
know, you know how much it needs.
I know how much it needs. Yes.
Yours is 3 billion.
Mine
okay.
is 3.
Bring. Like
And yours?
that.
Add it onto a list.
I think I like 4. 4 is a good number.
Okay.
Bring.
As long as it's below 7.
Whether it's viable.
Anything above 7. So as long as
Viability
it's
is,
as
we
little
will
as 7
determine
billion.
viability when we
Later.
implement it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is literally what has happened. And now we're trying to crawl our way out of a hole and the sand keeps coming in from the surface. So we're trying to crawl our way coming out backwards. The sand is still people. Look,
1 trillion shillings required to complete projects.
when we were children, when we were younger, we would use humor as a way to get out of some of our issues. So in this case, you're laughing yourself out of a problem, but I think that's the only way to remain
This is
sane.
it. Yeah.
This is the way to remain sane. Because are you kidding me? 500 projects stalled because there was no viable plan.
in 7 years.
Come on. What are we talking about?
Stalled in 7 years. This is a joke.
And the thing is, please remember, the money is gone.
Finish you.
It was budgeted
Barry.
for. Yes, we knew what it would cost. It was allocated, money gone. It's not as though the money wasn't used and we're saying, okay, can we now use it to actually ensure that the projects are actually completed? No, money gone, projects also gone, meaning nothing has happened.
yeah.
Akuna.
If you're to salvage anything, you need to spend more.
Actually, you might as well just scrap it and start from the
From
beginning.
the very beginning.
Just say, just
Forget it.
call it.
You know,
it's gone.
most people may not even know this, but if you're talking about building a house, refurbishing it and putting those fine details often costs more than the actual building.
Of course, yes.
Yes, so these fellows want us to continue with what? Stalled? No. It'll cost us much. You might as well
more.
just scrap it, start
and
again.
start again.
1 trillion shillings going into projects is a lot of money.
Well, that's a third of the national budget,
Yes.
is not?
30% going back into history.
33.33.
30.
Get it right, please. In this case, the city will be quite prescriptive about how much it is.
With 2 dots at the top of the
Yes,
three.
exactly.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
It's a recurring decimal.
You might also then be interested to know, in a very small piece on the same page, that Rwanda GDP to grow by 8% this year.
8.
Yes. Rwanda's economy is expected to grow by 8% this year, and in 2021 versus an estimate 8.5% in 2019, boosted by private investment and trade. According to the same IMF, the small East African nation's economy, notice the adjectives, relies largely on agriculture, tourism, and mining. The government also forecast it would grow 8.5% in 2019, and it did. It grew 11.9% in the third quarter, not even just the 8.5, versus 7.7% in the third quarter of 2018, reflecting an improved performance in manufacturing, construction, and services.
When you're talking about development.
Can we do this thing like what Putin did with Crimea? We just annex, we just make Rwanda a county of Kenya. County number 48,
Bring it.
Rwanda.
We
Benefit from its economy.
we are a country that eats its own. We don't bother eating outside. Please remember that when you're talking about economies and their growth, China maintained something like a 26% growth for something like 30 years. Not a year.
Yep.
30. 30.
Continuous.
Successive
years.
That's why they were. Here we are still talking about 3%, 4%.
You're at 4.
Maybe.
6%. We've done very well.
7.
And then we're talking about development. Now, if you're talking development, you know the digits you must get to be able to actually evolve. And why? Crime in that country is costly. It's really, really costly. Means managing government funds in that country is costly. As in, it'll cost you your life. So, people take these things seriously.
It's just basically, for us, it's fighting the kleptocracy because that's what we have. And once we get that sorted, we will move. But as long as people are coming up with projects, fitting things into a piece of paper and saying, let's get the money out of the coffers so that we can eat the money and say, this is going into this kind of project, we are not going to move. Let's come to Nairobi. And this is what has happened to Mike Mbuvi Sonko's nominee. Elachi rejects Sonko's nominee.
Surprise, surprise.
So basically she's saying, I'm not even going to have it discussed at the county assembly because I have looked and I have realized that this is the IEBC, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, had actually come up with regulations on how to nominate a deputy governor. And they had sent this after the Supreme Court advisory earlier. They had sent this to the Council of Governors and said, you see, a deputy governor's position is an elective position because you come in with your governor. So basically, the whole idea of nominating a candidate should go through the IEBC process. And IEBC says the first thing that you should do is you come to IEBC for vetting so that you're cleared to be a candidate. And then that candidate shall now be taken to the county assembly for approval. This is what should happen. So this is what Elachi is saying, the Speaker of Nairobi is saying, I realize that this has not gone through that procedure. And instead of us going to the county assembly and discussing, and then somebody goes to court and says, you flouted procedure, let's just take it back to Sonko and tell Sonko, look, you want Ms. Anne Mwenda to be your deputy governor? Now, present her to the IEBC. Let the IEBC conduct the vetting. So she'll have to go there with all those things. Does she meet the Chapter 6 requirements? Is she clean? Has she ever served a jail term? So once she's cleared of all those things by IEBC, then IEBC sends the names back to Sonko. Sonko can then now nominate her as a deputy governor.
Did he not know this procedure before?
I'm not sure he does. I don't know.
Because it seems, it's probable that he didn't, because had he known this, then he would, we assume, he would have gone through the process. No? No?
It is not. The governors don't govern without advisors. There are people, you make decisions, you run them by some individuals. And some of these individuals have a legal background.
And
so
they're versed
they will
in the
tell
process.
you.
They know.
Yes.
So assuming that the governor is ignorant, I think that assumption may be wrong.
And somebody
it could
would
also
have
be
told
because
him.
this
Exactly.
has not happened before. Remember, the IEBC just presented this to the Council of Governors and said this is how we advise that you go about this.
Advise.
Yes, that you go about this because
Is it the legal process that is mandated, or is it just advice?
it's basically telling them, look, because this is an elected person, this is an elected position, then we should assume that when you're going about nominating them, you should go through this entire process same way. So let's say if the Council of Governors did not deliberate or communicate this is going to be the first time that this is actually being put to practice. It's possible that even the advisors may have overlooked. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see if Elachi sends them back to the governor. Is he going to follow this procedure now? Or is he going to take another 6 months deliberating on it, on thinking, should I not?
Time is of the essence here, you know.
I mean, they don't have time to be dilly-dallying around this thing. So it's either it's 1, 2, 3, we go. If we're going to go through the steps, let's go about it. But it's clear at some point. I mean, and then when was this nomination made? 3 weeks ago now? 3 weeks ago. There would have been time to have said this a while back because it's clear that it's a procedure they were well aware of. Tell us now, let's move. Then we dilly-dally, wait. Come on. We can't continue in limbo like this. Because that's what it feels like, really.
So you're saying time is of the essence because we are thinking of the 60-day window?
Yeah, it's almost over, no? We're in the second half of it.
But let me also say something else here. You see, this is Kenya.
This is what I was about to tell you.
Yes, and by the way, this ignorance thing won't wash.
No.
You didn't know?
Yeah, shauri yako. It's
Sorry.
no defense.
Sorry.
None whatsoever.
It's 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. You are in the room with Eric Latif, CT Muga, and Nduoko, taking a look at what's happening, what was covered in the headlines over the weekend. When you come out of this short break, when you take a look at traffic, we'll be looking at the BBI meeting in Kakamega and the politics of the BBI over the weekend. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
All right,
Traffic.
it's a Monday morning, and of course, the drama has already begun. Thika Road this morning. You're going to be asked to use the service road from Roy Road to the bypass because a lorry has stalled on the highway, and it's already causing crazy traffic outbound today. And we're being asked to be very careful. And unfortunately, on the same Thika Road, right around just coming past Ngara, somebody who decided not to use the footbridge unfortunately has been knocked down. So there's an accident there and it's causing traffic now inbound on Thika Road. So of course it's already serving up those traffic vibes this morning. Nasty traffic in Rongai. We don't know what's up right now, but we will let you know. So that means it's affecting anything that's coming off that road and then joining Langata Road coming into the city centre. Jogo Road looking all right now. Getting to the city stadium roundabout is easy, and then getting into the CBD also from that area not so bad right now. We'll see how it builds up in about half hour. Coming off Waiyaki Way also not so bad either, as you then join the University Way roundabout and then headed up Uhuru Highway, then out of town also not so bad either. Gong Road coming to the City Mortuary roundabout is easy street for now. It's likely to build up in a short while. Mombasa Road, of course, traffic from Syokimau has already started to build up. Let's see what it looks like shortly, but for now this is where you are, and if there are any alternatives that we can get you to use, we'll let you know in a short while. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter, or call us at 0719 012 600.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
Well, it's 25 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, we live stream the show, and our live stream is up on our digital platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. So, this happened on Saturday. Leaders met at Buhungu Stadium in Kakamega, and they claim to have discussed the BBI report. And they came out with resolutions on what they were discussing. What is of note here is those who had said that they were not going to attend ended up attending. So two leaders, this is Moses Wetangula and where Musalia Mudavadi ended up at Bukhungu Stadium, and they dumped their brother Boni Halwale, who was left somewhere in Mumias with cops. With cops. So the politics of the BBI basically are just taking center stage. So what we were seeing there, was it politics or was it BBI being discussed?
It was interesting because it is a great mishmash of both. On Thursday, we had the same conversation. We said, look, in the politics of this country, anything can happen at any time. Friday night, nobody expected that Wetangula and Mudavadi would do what they did on Saturday.
Yeah.
And the politics changed very quickly in a couple of hours on Saturday. So then seeing who it was touted to have been, then turned out not to have been. And it changed over a very short period of time. Of course, the politics was included in all of this. Whether it was BBI, we saw very, spirited sentiments coming out of very many people in terms of the BBI is what is needed for this country. So whether you want to bring your divisive politics here or not, it is the BBI that we are going for. This is the agenda that the country is going with. So it's either you're here or not.
Fall in line.
Fall in line. It's either you're here or not. So if you're not for BBI, what you're saying is that you're against government. Essentially, that is the message that came out from a lot of people this
That's what
week.
City says.
Yeah.
If you're not against, if you're against this, you're against development.
Voila.
It's not
This
even
is it.
government.
It's not even government.
You're
It's
against development. Anti-development forces.
So anybody who has aligned, whether you want to call it BBI meeting, whether you want to call it political rally, anybody who has aligned with these activities that will then now move to where they're moving this weekend?
They have
Mombasa.
an entire
I
album
think
that
the
they
next
come up with.
Wherever
they will move to. If you're against this
They will be
wave,
in Mombasa this weekend.
If
On
you're
the 2nd of February, they'll
Right.
be in Embu and Meru. And on the 9th of February in Garissa. Then they go to Eldoret. Then they go to Suswa, Kiambu, end up in Nairobi on the 26th of February.
voila. So if you're against this wave that is clearly passing through the nation, what you're against is development. So woe betide you, who is unfortunately being chased by pellets of tear gas and whatever. What you're against is development. You're not against the BBI. You're not against a particular politician. You're against development. And that was the message that came out this weekend.
Well, we have actually we've drawn the line in the sand.
Well,
Like I said last week, I think I'm on this other side of the sand.
which other one?
Against development.
You're
against
I
development.
am
eh?
against
They
development.
don't like
Okay,
you.
tell us why. No. Chapter 1. Yes. Why?
I'm against development. I'm against these meetings the way they're taking place. And I said it again last week.
Very
We have
eloquently
got
too,
we
yes.
have got politicians who are coming up and they're all speaking at the front of the podium, right? We've got people who are sitting here and they're cheering. The people's voice, we are assuming that is what is being conveyed by the leaders who are talking to them. This is not a process of validating the report. This is not a process of adding input to the report. This is a process of politicking over the report.
It's called propagating.
Propagating the report, right?
For it to then
I'm
grow
made to
into
understand that
something
I was complaining that the task force is not even represented in these meetings. I'm made to understand that actually the task force is sending delegations to these meetings. So you have the task force that is not even the one that's presenting the report and saying, guys, so when we came to Kakamega, and this was last year, the Paul Mwangi team and the Yusuf Haji, this is what you told us. And this is what we've put in the report. Validate it. Does it go against what you said or does it not? This is not happening. We're just seeing political leaders standing up and telling you, if you're not here, you're not in Kenya.
Eric, I've actually heard you, but what exactly are they doing which is actually wrong? Because wrong is being imputed here. What is it?
What they're doing that is...
Wrong.
What I find wrong is that they're jumping the gun. Like I said, so the team that is supposed to be spearheading this process is the BBI task force led by Yusuf Haji, right? And there's a new technical team that was set up, 30-member technical team. That the technical team is on that's supposed to be thinking of hold meetings, town halls, small meetings, discuss with the people, let the people give you more feedback on this, and then come out of those meetings with agreements. This is what the people of Kenya have said. They agree with the report to a certain extent. They want some amendments to a certain extent. They want some additions to a certain extent. And now they'll come up with further and better resolutions. What we are seeing now is politicians basically coming out to say, this is what is in the report. It's the best thing to have, but also we want a powerful prime minister.
Yes.
And they are telling it to the people.
Yes.
And then they're not going to tell that to the committee. So, why?
Has the committee been prevented from doing what it's supposed to do now that it's been instituted and now that its mandate has been gazetted? Have they been stopped?
No.
Look,
They're still carrying on with their
do
work.
we
right?
have
Yeah.
a constitutional timetable for when people should actually engage in campaigning? Do we have a constitutional timetable?
No, but the president has been very vocal on this.
No.
Let us
See,
focus on development.
That amounts
Let
to a
us
roadside
stop-
declaration.
Yes. Let us
right?
stop, this thing.
Eric, I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying in return is this. So long as there is no constitutional requirement or a timetable which dictates when people should campaign, even if you campaign from the last election up to the next one, there's nothing in the law that prevents you from doing it, number one. Number two, the fact that you have a body that has been given the mandate to collect views of Kenyans, again, is there anywhere that the politicians are prevented? We seem to be mishmashing things that have to do with our law courts. From what I understand, if there are certain matters in court, we are not allowed to discuss these matters in public because the process of determining is actually going on. Different scenario. They are supposed to collect views. Politicians are going about politicking the issue. It may be repugnant. We may think this is not the way to go about it, but it doesn't seem to me that like it's illegal.
No, nobody said it's illegal. It's just repugnant. Thank you for giving me that word. It's repugnant. It's a heavy word.
You like the sound
It's
of it on your tongue, eh?
repugnant.
I didn't say it is repugnant. I said it may be considered repugnant.
I have taken
Eric.
it. I have taken it and I said it's repugnant. We said the politics of it. Basically, let's look at the politics of what happened over the weekend, right? So, why was Musalia and Wetangula complaining? They were feeling like they were left out of the kitchen.
That sort of movement is what rumors are made of. And you will hear all sorts of things ranging from the president called them or they had a dream. Within that range,
Yes.
take your pick, okay? End of the story is they attended the meeting. Yes, but these are astute politicians and they've been in it for long enough. And if you ask me, they can see the direction this particular train is going.
Absolutely.
And they've realized that given the cargo this particular train has, if you miss out, if you don't board now.
As they say in Nigeria, nothing for you.
Yes, but we've had this discussion before. And we even said that, there are certain trends that once you see it in motion, if you make the mistake of taking a certain position, and that position isn't well thought out, that could mark the beginning of the end of your political career. And by the way, this country is fraught with examples of that particular nature, of people who took certain positions, made certain decisions at a certain time, and one could argue that they didn't think it out clearly enough, or circumstances didn't favor them. Nonetheless, the political careers were on a downward slide from that point onwards.
So this was just them coming to the right side of history.
This was them, doing what politicians do best, looking after number one.
They're themselves.
Personal interest
Absolutely.
So-
in the name of unity.
Are you therefore saying that what they were doing earlier in the week was basically what you normally call it
The bargaining.
the bargaining?
Yes.
This was them bargaining.
This was them making enough noise so that they can get attention. They can be told, Nani, come.
Siukuje. Nini.
Acha
Shida-
nikwambie.
Shida iko wapi? Peke yake. Why don't you attend this rally as we consider what next to do? Yes.
And they got that because they got the relevance. The fact of the matter is they also became part of the headlines. So Charity Ngilu was in that meeting. Has anybody talked about Charity Ngilu being
No.
in that meeting? Nobody has talked about
The
Charity
governor,
Ngilu.
the governor of Kirinyaga,
Kirinyaga was in the meeting
There's a
also.
small
This time-
mention, that's it.
A photo here,
In fact,
a photo there.
the only photo that mentions them is when they were dancing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then you also realize that specifically these two gentlemen had already said they were out. Essentially, they had said they were out. And then suddenly, you're back in.
Those are pronouncements by politicians.
Especially because it's coming to your backyard.
Exactly.
Look, it's
There's
coming
no
to
way you
Western
can be left
Kenya.
out to realize, hey, and exactly, if I don't jump on this gravy train now, I'm done.
But clearly,
And you're likely to see the other leaders who are more aligned towards the Raila faction taking the limelight. So the best way for you to negotiate having a better, position on the stage, on the podium, is to make noise so that you can come in and you'll be recognized. Oh, they have even arrived. In fact, they arrived after Raila had arrived, right?
yes, they did. They did. Now,
Well timed.
I know it's very well timed, but if you consider, you see, this is the thing about political utterances, and this is where it catches up with you. If it is reported that the deputy president has said something now, it will fall in the category of the things he usually says. The things, category of it's not really new. But where now this thing becomes a little interesting is this. If it is perceived, even if it isn't necessarily true, that you have been fighting your principle and that you've been against your principle, unfortunately, that doesn't usually forebode well.
Nope.
It doesn't. It's not just, not in this country, not anywhere. If you are against the leader of that particular period, of that era, usually people resign because they want to make a position and they want to say, this is my stand, they resign. But if there's a history and it's reported as such, then what you've done is you've created a narrative by which you will be identified. That this person actually opposes the president. Not even the presidency.
Authority.
The
President.
Yes. Authority issues like that. You see, once you mention president, what you have embedded in that statement is authority, legitimacy, everything. Okay?
And it will follow you like a bad stink.
Yes, it will. Now, why am I saying this? Again, one of our headlines, one of the stories has been that Raila has presented himself as Mr. Fix-It for Uhuru. To fix what? Exactly.
Exactly.
Because you can't fix something unless
It's broke.
Now, I don't think that anyone would. You can't beat strategy when it comes to this. You bring someone who has a history of being in the opposition. Now, you'll have in-house the sort of advice of, these are the things we've been complaining about.
Yeah.
The things you've been doing wrong. So you know. Now, if you continually oppose the president, as we've said in this very studio, you automatically take the position of the opposition. But you're new to this game. Because you have 1 foot in government, 1 foot apparently in the opposition, as opposed to the other person who had both feet in the opposition. Now, that person has, if I may just mention the word again, gravitas. Yes.
13 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're discussing the weekend politics of BBI. So, a meeting happened at Buhungu Stadium. Another meeting is scheduled for this coming weekend in Mombasa. Then from there, they'll go to Embu, Meru. They'll go to Garissa the following weekend. At 16th of February, they'll be in Eldoret. 17th of February, Suswa. 25th of February, Kiambu. 26th of February, the meeting is scheduled to be in Nairobi. Now, those meetings have gaining momentum. Whether they're discussing the BBI or basically they are creating scenarios for 2022 politics. This is the launch pad for 2022 is what we are discussing. What exactly is happening in these meetings? We'll also be opening up the phone lines 0719 012 600. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So the rhetoric coming out of Buhungu Stadium on Saturday was, if you're not here, you are against the government, right?
Against development.
Against development. So let's look at who was there. So the people who were there and those who avoided going there. Of course, we know that one of the foremost leaders of the region, Speaker of the Senate, Ken Lusaka, had said he's not going to attend because he does not want to take a partisan position with his position as Speaker of the Senate. If this matter comes to Parliament, the Speaker should not appear to be partisan. Or at any point, the issue be raised that you spoke, even at Buhungu, and you said the same thing, that those of us who are opposed to this process or this document are against development. Therefore, you should recuse yourself, step down from that seat. So he was not there, so we can excuse him. Now, let's look at who else was there. So Charity Ngilu was conspicuously present.
Ann Waiguru.
So you've seen Ann Waiguru was present. So you've seen the leadership of Ukambani. Remember, on the same day there was a burial in Ukambani, which Kalonzo Musyoka attended, the deputy president attended, the speaker of, the governor of Kitui was not there. Was the governor of Machakos also not there? So we have seen leaders who are not in Buhungu and leaders who are in Buhungu. This particular time, the leadership of Western Kenya, apart from Boni Khalwale and others, everybody else was there, right? So we have a number of MPs who were present and a number of MPs who were absent. Of course, people like Didmas Barasa were also not present. So leadership of...
Who is he again?
He's an MP. For one of the constituencies in Western. Right?
Okay.
Remember the guy with the hat?
The red...
Yes.
It's a fez.
It's called a fez.
Yes.
So the guy with the fez. And one of those fezzes was last time seen being worn by Junaid Mohammed in Kibra.
All right.
After he disappeared. So is this an alignment of, or is Raila basically building his alignment for 2022? Because this is a conversation that also emerges out of this. What is the political optics of the Kisii Stadium and now Buhungu?
Again, if you're talking about this sort of movement or the rhetoric that accompanies sort of movement, again, it isn't new. No, it isn't new at all. One of the things that we found in the Moi era, there were two individuals who were known to test the grounds. They were like the litmus test for anything. There was one gentleman called Sharif Nasir. He by far was the loudest. People who would make pronouncements. There's a gentleman called Njiru as well. These people were known to be the litmus test for the government. They would say certain things and then watch as that particular information was absorbed and the unfolding aftermath of whatever conversation they had had. So in many ways, one could get the feeling that they more or less gave an indication of what people thought. And remember, it's not as though everyone complied with what the government wanted. No. But the government did make a point of always ensuring that they did a fair round of discussions in public places, what we normally call rallies, okay, to put across a certain view that they had. And they had key individuals in every part of the country who would do this for them. This, politically speaking, isn't new. Yes. And if you're talking about rallying people and talking about this thing all over, please consider there are people who will attend a rally but may not necessarily read any paper. They may not read any document, and they may not even have attended those public meetings that the BBI team had. But rallies have the capacity to bring in people who ordinarily, whether it's for the entertainment factor, for the news factor, or just a Sunday outing, lacking something better to do, but they will hear, and the discussions of whatever went on will take place.
Right.
So this is a medium that is actually very effective in talking to very large groups of people. Number one. Number two, it also helps keep the conversation alive, especially when you know that they're going to some other place. So there's, what are they going to say next? What are they going to say next? You cannot get public participation in terms of numbers. Note, you can't get public participation in terms of large numbers of people listening to a certain rhetoric. It serves that purpose and it serves it well. If you oppose it, you are fortunate in that you have something to ride on. If this thing is popular and you oppose it, you will also get airtime.
You also get.
Exactly.
Yes, you
Because
do get
on the
airtime.
other side.
Yes, it's like criticizing the president or criticizing the deputy president or criticizing Raila Odinga. You will get airtime.
I think one thing that's interesting or necessary to bring out then is that those who oppose this, are they opposing an individual? Are they opposing the idea and the initiative as a whole? I would really like to understand where this opposition comes from. Or are they aligning themselves with an individual who seems to be in opposition of these ideas and these initiatives? You see, so that's the thing. Because unfortunately, the individuals who were tear-gassed or whatever, who wanted to hold their own, rally in Mumias, as it were, and were then not allowed to, what is it that they oppose? Opposing using public funds to have these meetings, opposing politicking of the entire process, aligning themselves with an individual, opposing being sidelined or abused at BBI rallies. What is it that they oppose? Or opposing just for opposition's sake? And I think those things need to be taken into consideration, because sometimes you look at what happens during mob justice and some of the people who fight. If you were to pull them out after the whole melee and ask them, what exactly were you fighting or whom were you fighting? They're dizzied and they're not really sure.
It's an opportunity to vent your own frustrations. It may have
exactly,
nothing to do with what is
with
happening,
actually what is going
but
on.
It's just an opportunity.
Exactly. An opportunity, just like you were saying. Whereas an opportunity has presented itself where the popular activities are taking place. So you as an individual have seen an opportunity to make yourself relevant. Even in the opposition, there is an opportunity for
one or two people
to,
may have a strong point, and the rest of you are just
going along with the crowd.
joining the mob.
Exactly.
Joining the mob to fight.
I think that's necessary.
But if you remember the
to
magic
consider.
thinking that also accompanies our politics, especially the politics of money being dished out, not the amount, just money. Every other person who attends a meeting figures you never know. There's a you never know principle. You might just be at the right place at the right time when money is being dished out.
Take your chance.
Take your chance. And staying at home won't help your chances, so go out and listen. The reasons for attending rallies are as varied as the people who attend rallies, and that is also true.
Yeah.
But what is of interest is that one of the biggest forms of entertainment in this country, political rallies. Because the politicians say the most reckless things, the craziest of things, and people consider it entertaining. And they rise to the gallery. The politicians really entertain. So, if people attending rallies are supposed to be a barometer of some acquiescence or some, that would be a misnomer. It isn't true. Those same crowds.
You'll find them the following day
Yes.
in the opposition's rally.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Same
Saying
crowd.
that at that point, what I meant was different, and the circumstances have, however, changed. Nevertheless, I still choose to be relevant in this sphere in which I find myself today.
But remember, what these activities are doing, they're keeping this BBI debate alive, and they're keeping the BBI debate diverse. People are talking about it because it's whether you're opposing it or they're supporting it.
See, they're not keeping it diverse. They've narrowed it down.
No. When I say keeping it diverse, it's not them. If you are for the BBI and somebody is not for it, you have two opposing views. So the diversity is brought in by that. Just that. Nothing more. Because these people who seem to be against the BBI don't seem like they're going to sit back and just let it go.
Who's against the BBI?
It appears that there's a brigade. Let's talk about Western Kenya. They seem to be against this particular BBI, or they want to present their own version of what may be the equivalent of
I don't
BBI.
think they're really against the BBI, to be fair. They have said that they are for the BBI. Now,
And by the actions, we see that they're for the BBI?
No. You see, these actions are not what constitutes being for BBI. Again, this is what this faction of leadership is basically saying, that if you are here with us, you are the ones who are for BBI. No. Everybody is for the BBI. It's a process going
everybody
forward.
is not for the BBI.
It's a process going forward. Who is against the BBI? Tell me.
I've already just told you, and you've discounted it. And
No,
I
you've
have
told me
said,
some leaders in Western. Who?
yes, and if you have an opposing rally to what is considered the BBI rally, what message are you passing across?
No, you're not against the BBI.
What
You're
then are
against
you?
what they're doing. Like, I am complaining about this. I'm not against the BBI. I'm against the process that they're using, the procedure, the process of
Allow
solving-
me to educate you on
or
this
taking
particular
these
matter,
issues.
Eric.
politicizing
in
BBI
politics,
and trying to...
Perception is as good as the truth. Perception.
for everyone.
Yes. If you oppose something, even if your motive is to correct it and you're for it, you will be seen as being against it.
Yeah, just because the other side is louder. That's the point.
It isn't loudness.
And yours is being stifled.
It
Yes,
isn't-
it's because being louder.
Eric, it isn't loudness. We have a culture in this country. Why do you think I talk about development and opposing development? All you've done is oppose a view that has been presented by a leader. You will be labeled as anti-government. You will be labeled as anti-development. And all you've done is provide a contrary view to one
To
that
what
a
the-
leader has provided.
has
That's
provided.
it. It's from that premise that I'm coming from.
Both people are leaders. It's the louder one who stands for development in this place.
There's
quote,
only
quote,
one
unquote.
president, and that president is for the BBI. There is a handshake partner called Raila Odinga who is for the BBI.
Yes.
And there are people...
There's a deputy president who is for the BBI. There's a deputy president who is against the politicization of the BBI in this particular manner. This is it. The people of Western, the ones you're talking about,
Eric,
are also
did you
against
hear what
the
I said?
politicization.
The optics.
Perception and the optics, I know.
Yes.
And I am telling you, just because one side is louder doesn't mean that the other side is against BBI. That's what they're selling.
Okay.
This is a conversation. It continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, so there's heavy traffic on Wayaki Way today. Groganville Estate towards Lower Kabete Road, Upper Parklands Estate. It is absolutely crazy. The fog in Ridgeways is blinding y'all, so you need to be very careful and also stay visible. Use your fog lights. That's why they were made for times like this. Traffic is all the way back, as far back as the inner Syokimau coming out onto Mombasa Road today. It's a Monday morning, folks, and everybody's out to play. Situation in Donholm, Greenspan area, there's traffic bumper to bumper. It's not moving in any way, shape or form. Kangundo Road Junction to Kayola is quite busy and everybody's out on the road to play this morning. All right, Jogo Road is where it's giving us some good life this morning. Getting to city. What? Okay. My tongue is moving faster than my brain. So, City Stadium roundabout is easier to get into town. There we go. I'm trying to beat the traffic also with my mouth. Give us what you can see and we'll spread the information. 0719-012-600. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Let us know what you see. Let's keep people moving this Monday morning, shall we? Yeah.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2.5 minutes past 7 o'clock. Good morning. How are you doing? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa. We're in Kisumu on 102.5, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri. And Malindi, we're broadcasting on 97.7. We live stream the show every morning. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Spice FM KE. And our website is www.spicefm.co.ke. CT Muga. A lot happened over the weekend again. We saw the CS for Education, Professor George Magoha, take some decisive action.
It isn't the first time that someone in that docket has taken decisive action. There were two individuals who have preceded him to that docket. One, Dr. Matiang'i, and one, Amina Mohammed. And even during their term in those particular positions, we saw such things. But if you look at the history of the university, this really isn't new. If you're talking about the appointment of a vice-chancellor and there being murmurs or actual noise about the appointment, it isn't the first time. These things go way, 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 way back. The time when the gentleman by the name of Arthur Porter. Arthur Porter was the equivalent of the VC of Nairobi from 1964 to 1971. And after that, he was preceded that same year by one Professor Josephat Karanja. And even then there was noise. It was felt that there were people who were senior to him, people who had had a professorial post prior to him and were more accomplished. There was Wasao, they said, there was Ominde, there was Ogot. But Josephat Karanja was the VC. But remember, for that period of time, up until 2001, the chancellor of all the public universities was also the president. So essentially, the president then had the power to appoint and unappoint. Okay? So, for the longest time, the VCs were actually appointees of the government. We had a council, but the council was also appointed by the government. All I'm saying was that up until the Kibaki era, when he was the shortest, the VC the shortest term, 1 year, and then Joe Anjui took over, all we are saying is that the university, given its nature and given what it does, has always had some issue or the other with the VC. But this one is unique in this sense. When Dr. Matiang'i was the Minister for Education, CS Education, on two separate occasions, our high courts had to nullify his appointments. Two separate occasions. And in fact, he was actually accused and has been accused publicly of defying court orders. Now, in 2017, the council was disbanded, appointed again in 2018. Now, There's a debate here which lacks clarity. We have it on authority presented in one of the dailies that the Public Service Commission actually undertook an exercise of, I think, was it 8 or 7 candidates. One candidate was left aside because they left out certain documents. But the list that was presented, and that is in the public domain, Professor Kiama actually scored the highest, 80.44%, followed by Professor Madara Agot, 79.31%, followed by a certain Professor Patricia Mbote, 78%, Professor Mbeche, 77%, Professor Elijah Omwenga, 76%, Professor Solomon Shabiaro, 70%, and Professor Bernard Njoroge, 70%. After the Public Service Commission presented it, they moved out. The contention here seems to be, according to the law which was changed in 2012, the council cannot appoint someone to the office of VC. Anything below the VC, they can. But to appoint the VC, they need to consult the Ministry of Education. Now, what form or shape this consultation is supposed to take, I really do not know. But it appears this is where now the bone of contention lies. But the action that was taken, because clearly there was a difference, was a disbandment of the council. This, again, is not the first time it has happened. It has happened before. Even during the time of Dr. Matiang'i, he also disbanded the council. Now, what followed again was revoking the appointment. Now, but what dramatized this further was that the professor then asked the Anti-Corruption Commission to look into the matter. Now, how this plays into this, I don't know. Now, my position is the Ministry of Education ought to have clarified it to the public and made it public as to what these procedures were and what because this war has actually been fought. I'm calling it a war because that's what it is. If there was such clarity, then the actions that were taken would be easy to explain. But what has happened is that this situation has been muddied, and what it has introduced is now tribal politics. Because if you look at the professor who was in an acting capacity before Kiama, this gentleman comes from the western part of the country. Kiama comes from the central part of the country. What they've introduced is something that has always been just immediately below the surface in the university. The politics of tribalism that plays out in the national arena being brought to this institution of higher learning. This is something that really must be brought to a halt because it interferes with the very process and the mandate that the university has actually been given.
So, short of Professor Magoha calling a press conference to explain why he took the action that he took, right? Isn't it, the job of the council to have ensured that it had done the job the way it's...
But there is no information as to whether they did or didn't. This is the point I'm trying to make. Because I talked about it to people who know, I read about it from the media, but there's lack of clarity. Now, let me further my discussion.
Yeah.
All right? Anyone who is actually in the position of VC, according to the new... In fact, why don't I just quote the statutes so that we can understand it with greater clarity instead of assuming that here I am creating my own statutes.
You're creating your own laws.
Yes.
Telling us things from the top of your head.
Yes, and that I woke up and I was spoken to by an angel about these things, and here I am simply talking about things that I have decided on my own. No, actually I haven't. The Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2018, which was signed into law in January 2019 by President Uhuru Kenyatta, it takes away the power of the university councils to advertise, interview, and recommend for appointment top university managers. Number one. Okay? Now, we go further. If you look at that very same process that gives us our laws, this is what it says. I'm going by what the Employment and Labor Relations Court did. These are the people who are supposed to interpret the law for us. Okay? Now, they quashed the appointments that had been done. They quashed by CS Amina. They further quashed later after that the same court. Now, why am I mentioning court and this act? I would assume that if there's an act, it means that there is a provision of law for these activities. Now, when you misunderstand them, you take them to the court. So if the court quashes something, what does it tell you? They've given you an interpretation for it.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if they've given an interpretation, I am of the view that this particular one may require further interpretation. This thing that we're seeing,
This particular action.
this particular action may require, forget going to anti-corruption commission, it should go back to the courts for further clarification. Because really, it's a question of the law as to who appoints and at what point, what details are they in. Remember, general, you're not allowed to top university managers. And the interpretation has been vice chancellor. That has been
So
the
who should
interpretation.
appoint a
Right,
vice
because the
chancellor?
top university
Because you're
manager
saying that-
could then be seen as the vice chancellor.
Yes.
Because then again, yes.
You don't get higher than that, by the way.
Exactly. So that's the thing. And then in terms of his appointment, then who then is responsible for that? Or at the very least, then who is responsible for the clarification of how this individual then should be hired? And that's something then that now has come to the fore, but to me is a smokescreen for the fact that yes, tribal politics, even in this institution, are greatly involved
But
because it's
also-
one guy against the other.
There's always been
And-
a running battle between the council and the government because you will find that in the case of Matiang'i and Amina Mohammed, the argument was that they were preferred government candidates. And the council had a different idea as to who should be the candidate.
It's always the very easy thing to say, because this action is being taken is because there's a preferred candidate who's being championed by the government or this and the other. But not necessarily the case all the time, Just because the council is feeling like it's put under pressure to do its job properly, it doesn't mean that it's the government that's pushing its own agenda.
It doesn't, and it also doesn't mean that the government is not pushing.
Yeah. It could also just mean that the council is basically pushing its own agenda, but they're being called out. And the easiest way for them to do it, because they know the government will never say that, no, we don't have a candidate. The easiest political thing to do is, there are people in government.
What muddies this water further is that Justice Odunga actually made a ruling that the CS had no power to disband any existing council.
Very interesting. Was Magoha at one point not in this position at the University of Nairobi?
He was.
Yes, he was. He was VC at the University of
2 terms.
No, yes, he
No,
was.
Bomagoha, yes.
Yes.
2 terms, yes.
Yes, he was.
Yes. 10 years.
So he understands the intricacies of this council and its involvement with government and knows very well, who appointed him, if we want to go back to the nitty-gritty of it. Where did his appointment come from?
All right. Now let me just read these laws so that it gets even trickier. All right. The cabinet secretary has powers to appoint members of the council to the university as per section 36(1) of the Universities Act. But however, the corresponding powers regarding the removal of council members must be changed in accordance with the University of Nairobi Charter 2012, the Letter of Interim Authority, and the State Corporate Act. That was as advised by Professor Githu Muigai. So the removal, you can appoint. Removal now, other authorities and other statutes come in. So it's not just you wake up and you remove them. So again, the question will be asked, did you follow all those statutes? Because it
Did you
seems like
follow
a
process?
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is a matter that the courts have to decide again. Because it's a question of interpretation.
And it's not a matter, it's not a question of then, how have things always been done in this particular institution? Because then what muddies the waters is that somebody will then say, in my term or during my tenure, this and this and this is what was done. In my experience, this is what we know. So the overall body or the overall institution then being the court would be the one would have to come and step in and say, this is the manner in which we are going to unfold all of this. Because right now all we have is being done is people are expressing and saying, no, as far as I'm concerned, this nomination or this appointment is null and void, remove.
Let me muddy
Where
the
they
waters.
actually don't have the power to do this.
Let me muddy the waters further. Okay? According to Professor Mugai again, according to the university charter, again, remember now we're talking the university charter.
Yep.
A vacancy that's within the council can only arise in the council through resignation, one, or a member's inability to exercise duties due to physical or mental infirmity or death. None of these has occurred. So, all I'm saying is that these things that I'm reading will challenge the very actions that Professor Magoha has taken. But if he can prove that indeed he followed the procedure and he actually understood and complied with the State Corporations Act, Letter of Interim Authority, and the University of Nairobi Charter of 2012, if he complied by all these things, then indeed there may be no issue. But this is not something that lay people like us who are not perhaps fully informed about all the intrigues that don't require law for them to be enacted. Let the court decide.
What we are seeing, though, is what is happening at the University of Nairobi. So we see a statement being issued by Professor Kiama in the newspapers saying that, look, forget the unprocedural degazettement of my appointment. I am the legally appointed VC of this university, and I shall take over my office in due course. And then we are seeing now the one who's been designated to be acting, Professor Mbeche.
He was acting
also-
even before
Yes.
Kiama was appointed.
Also now coming in and saying, no. Any communication from the VC's office shall be done by the undersigned, that is me. And even going to the extent of changing locks for offices.
What is of interest?
Why do we have to get to this particular position? This is where I always have a problem with government. Because this is government. Why do we have to get to a position where the council goes through this whole procedure? The council even announces
Public
that
Service
this is the
Commission,
person.
by the way, no. This was not just Public Service Commission did the interviews,
Yes.
and came up with the results, and then handed them to the council and said,
Yes.
"This is our finding." Now,
Yeah, they went through an entire
yes.
process.
So now you take over and move along from this point on.
Right.
Yeah.
We've done our bit.
By the time
They-
the council is announcing this, why is the government? Why is the government not aware this is what's happening?
No,
Or
but-
why not even have a sit down and say, but remember, guys, this is a procedure. This is a process now. This is
But
what
Eric,
you should
even
do.
before the announcement of the process of interviewing, the process of call for application, whether it was headhunted, whatever it was, that entire process started somewhere, and it's not shrouded in any kind of secrecy. It's something that is made public. You know that certain term is coming to an end, and it is necessary for us to fill this position, and the process through which we go through this has begun. That information was clear. By the time there were 2-3 candidates left, they were also informed of this procedure. They were informed, and they cannot tell us that they were not. They were informed, they knew. And I agree with you. Why then do we let the volcano erupt? All of this happens, everything is done, and then we say, oh, by the way, no.
Cancel it.
By the way, since we are on the by the way status, by the way, by the time the CS Amina Mohammed appointed Professor Julio Jambo to chair this particular council, remember, there were two different appointments had been cancelled by the High Court. And this was during Dr. Matiangi's time. Now, what is of interest is that Dr.
Magoha.
No.
Matiangi's time.
I have
His
gone
time
back
as
in-
education
Yes,
minister, all right.
Yes.
Yes,
And he
yeah.
actually went against a court ruling. Actually went against a court ruling. Now, and proceeded to make his own appointments.
And
now,
it stood? Did it stand?
unfortunately, I am simply giving you a history of the problems we've had. to
By the
current
way.
years.
Right.
Yes,
Oh,
a
so
by the way,
you
just so
started
that
off
you
as a by the
understand-
way,
yeah, just so
got
that you understand that what we're dealing with here didn't start today.
There's
Yes.
a background to
There's
it.
a background to it, and there's also a background of impunity where the court makes a ruling and the government officer who is at the helm at that time decides to ignore that particular ruling.
We're taking a look at what's happening, what's unfolding at the University of Nairobi. So we have a VC who had been designated, was about to be sworn in, and I think it was supposed to happen this week or next week, right? This is Professor Kiama Getahi to be the Vice Chancellor, and then that appointment was degazetted and revoked by the CS for Education, who also disbanded the council that's supposed to be picking a Vice Chancellor. So we are at a position where we don't even know what's happening. There's a lot of politics that has come into play. Siti Muga is saying this exposes the university and brings in the issue of tribal politics and other underhand dealings that are happening there. This is what we're discussing this morning at 19 minutes past 7 o'clock. It's a situation amidst Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
So, what role does the Chancellor play in all this? Remember when Joe Wanjohi now took over as Chancellor of Nairobi? He was vocal, he was visible, right? What role does the Chancellor play in all this, City?
No.
At best, from what I can see, it's oversight. But the role of Chancellor isn't executive. I don't. The Chancellor cannot decide who is in. Well, they can influence behind the scenes probably, but to actually be actively
Come out
involved,
openly
no, you can't see it.
But as a chancellor, of course, the office of chancellor is of certain importance to the institution, right?
It is.
It's like, the guardian of everything.
It's like the office of the ombudsman.
Right.
That
So
one.
so the office of chancellor should also be very active in ensuring that the image, because this affects the image of the university is protected.
I'm sure
And
there is
ensuring
that.
that everything is done above board, ensuring that the whole entire procedure and processes are followed.
You see, the role of the chancellor now, I think, would become under the charter of the university. And what we're talking about here goes beyond the charter of the university. It goes to the Employment Act. It goes to the State Corporations Act. It goes to the actual other bodies that are far beyond the office of the chancellor have come into being. The moment the ministry enters that particular scene, then state corporations, because the university falls under that act to some degree, all these things come into play. Now, unfortunately, where these things come into play, each of these agencies has a head and with a clear mandate. So let me say again, from where I sit and from my understanding, the role of the chancellor in this particular case is probably to intervene behind the scenes. But directly, no.
No, the behind the scenes I'm also interested in. Because you see, at that, where we have come, matters are coming to a head, is we are seeing two very senior people in an institution actually clashing openly in public. Where you see one statement being issued by an acting VC, another one being issued by somebody who has been appointed and has not yet taken office as VC. And it's all playing out in the public. What else you expect to see is this is politics.
If there had been no history and there had been such incidences had not occurred before, then we'd say, this is something that could be resolved easy. But we've had such incidences before. And
At this institution, yes.
Yes, the CS has been at the center of it. By the time you have two appointments being revoked by a court and you are the CS, what does it tell you? It tells you that you are not following the law. And that's what the court is telling you. The law is this. Kindly go and follow it. And the ruling by Justice Odunga then was clear. Nothing has superseded it. The CS doesn't have authority to disband a council. Plain and simple. It has stood.
Who disbands a council?
There is a process to it, and I read it. You need to either be sick, die, have a mental disability, or resign. That's how you leave the council. Or if there's a tenure, the tenure lapses. That's it. This one of just wholesale disbanding. And I'm going by what was issued as a judgment, not my personal view. Not my personal view at all. As I said, if there was no history behind this, and if you look at that history, then you are forced to actually consider that the government had people it favored, or the person who was in the position of the CS ministry had people who he favored and had given them certain appointments. That's what it looks like.
Who appointed the council?
Which council?
This particular council that has been disbanded.
This particular council, the chair was appointed by Amina Mohammed during her tenure.
As the CS,
Yes.
And the other council members?
The CS actually has authority to appoint them. I told you this.
So
it's the disbanding that where the issue arises.
Is where the issue comes in.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to drive at is this. If we talk about maybe thinking that the government is involved in meddling with the affairs of the council, or is involved in meddling with the appointment, then we would be saying that the government started that meddling by appointing.
No, appointing, meddling
saying,
is when you're not following the rules as they're laid down.
No.
If they're allowed to appoint, that's not meddling.
What I'm trying to say is, if you wanted to play the game of who is going to be appointed, then you look at the people that you are appointing to the council to ensure that those people are people who are going to listen to you.
But they're not going to
We
need
always
to
com-
listen.
we always talk
They're not
about
going
this.
to need to listen to you in the future because you're not going to be involved in the processes that all the activities.
Of course not.
That they're
But
going to be working with.
we are saying in the event that we follow an argument that the government is interested in interfering with the process of the appointment of the vice chancellor, then because they're the ones who have appointed the council, then they already have a hand in it, right? So if a CS, for example, or the government was intent on appointing a certain professor to become the vice chancellor of the University of Nairobi in the near future, then the constitution of the council already would be skewed towards people who would be aligned, so to speak. Right?
Fair.
Right?
That's fair
So if we
thinking,
get to a
yes.
point where the council has not gone according to the government, then it means that the government was not interested in interfering.
This council, the government here is being represented by an individual who is a CS. This council was appointed during the term of CS Amina's tenure as CS Education.
And
We
has
have-
been in existence until
then.
now.
Yes.
We have a new CS.
Yes.
He may have his preferences.
So it's individual CSs now.
The
It's a-
government here is represented
by
by the individuals. Let me repeat. So the individual interest could be read as government interest, and yet it is the individual's personal interest.
And I think this is where we come to the beat of it, because it seems very clear. It has nothing to do with process, has nothing to do with council selection, has everything to do with an individual preference as to whom they would rather see at this position. Now, look at what has happened. The appointment of this individual, after having gone through the process of interviewing and then selection, that has been revoked. The entire council has then been disbanded to say that, okay, even your activities having to do with then appointments and activities around this university, all of you out. Until then, we're able to see what we're going
and
to
call
be
the
able to do.
EACC to come and look and audit the process.
So would I would say, look, did they go through the process right? Because it does seem like a roadside decree that because he for some reason did not like or did not like whom they came up with at the end of the day, or because he could not be influential as far as the decision that was taken, he said, well, okay, no, I'm not going to accept it.
I disagree.
I disagree. And then of course
I'm
you have to
disagreeing
ask the
with you,
question.
Ndu.
Sorry?
I'm disagreeing
No,
with you.
But this is what he has done.
Kindly disagree.
Yeah,
I'm
this is
disagree-
what he has done. He has come and said, because if
What's the procedure?
the procedure
here-
to appoint,
The procedure
as far
to
as we can
appoint-
see by this council, the procedure to appoint, or whichever council it was that went through the interview, selected an individual, and then passed on that information, as per this is whom we have selected through the process. That was clear.
No, it's not.
It was not clear about as
No,
to
it's
how they
not.
did that.
That's why the CS is taking this action. He's
No,
saying
I don't
the
think-
procedure
I
should
don't-
be the council does not appoint a VC. You started by telling us that.
I explained what
comes to
should
the
happen,
head of the-
and
of
I
the
also said
institution,
it isn't clear what this consultation
There should
means.
be consultation
Yes.
with the ministry.
Yes, but
All
we
right?
don't know whether there was or not.
We don't know whether there was
the-
consultation
has the CS
between the
said there was a
council and
consultation or
has
not?
he said no, there was no consultation.
But
because
the PS is taking action on this.
no,
And why is
when
the
the
PS?
CS
Eric,
when
it's
the
a simple
CS
thing.
revoked this appointment,
Let's
did
not
he say
presume to
this is the
understand.
reason why?
He didn't.
He didn't. He didn't say because there was no consultation. He didn't say because the process was skewed. He didn't say because I assumed there was some kind of hanky panky here that took place. He didn't give a reason.
Was there an explanation?
There was no explanation.
But further to that, what complicates the issue is if you go by the ruling that was given and advice that has been given, he himself has to follow a certain
process.
Yes,
He too.
must comply with the Constitution, State Corporations Act, Letter of Interim Authority, University of Nairobi Charter of 2012. Has he complied? So even as he asked the Anti-Corruption Commission to investigate,
Even he himself.
should he also not tell us with clarity if he has complied with what is known to be the process
And
that must
something
be
as
followed?
something as simple as the fact that he does not have the power to disband. He does
Yet
not.
he doesn't.
And he has gone ahead to disband.
And
Something
in
as
short,
simple
what
as
he has
that.
done, he has gone against a court ruling. So this man is actually, what's the term that you use for people who go against court ruling?
You're talking about the powers. He has gazetted something and says, in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 36(1)(a) of the Universities Act 2012.
What does that say? What does it say?
Go look for it, and let's look for it as we have this conversation. And Section 51(1) of the Interpretation on General Provisions Act, Chapter 2 of the Laws of Kenya. The Cabinet Secretary for Education revokes the appointment of Professor Julia Ojiambo and the other members, right? So it's not that
He has given you the Universities Act. In this case, we are to assume.
not only the
in
Universities
this case,
Act.
we are
Not
to
only
assume
the Universities
that
Act.
that a judgment from a court of law supersedes that
Hold
of
on.
the university.
Not
Does
only
it not?
not only the Universities Act. He has also quoted the Interpretation and General Provisions Act. All right. You
Look,
do not assume that the CS acted just like that
Actually,
without
we can
consultation.
assume.
Yes, we can,
Without
because he didn't give.
Actually, we
Yes,
can.
we
No,
can
no, we
assume that
cannot.
because he
Eric,
did
we
not
can.
give.
We cannot assume because
Why not?
he's quoting provisions. This
So
is the
what
CS
if he quotes the
quoting
He can quote
provisions of the
anything he
law?
wants. He can quote
He-
the Bible for all we care at this
Yes,
point. He can
yes,
quote it, but in terms of
yes.
what he did,
You are
according
assuming that he
to
has
the
not
law-
consulted the lawyers, the legal officers in the government.
No.
That's what I'm saying. We cannot
No.
assume
Actually, we
that
can,
he has
Eric.
not followed
Let me
the
explain to you
advice
why
of the
we
Attorney
can.
General's office, for instance.
The ruling by Justice
Odunga.
Odunga was so clear.
On what?
He has no powers. No powers whatsoever to dissolve the council.
This was a ruling from a court.
No powers. Not at the Provisions Act, quote this.
No.
No powers.
I think as we look at the particular provisions that he
Yes.
has quoted, also give us the specific wording of the ruling by Justice Odunga. All right? So we come back and say, this is what Justice Odunga said. This is what the law says. This is what Justice Odunga has said, and this is what the law says. So we look at that, in tandem and see.
You know, the reason why there's this debate, Eric, is because the CS hasn't provided us with any clarity as to the actions he has taken.
and he doesn't need
You've
to.
made a good job defending him. If he had given us all these
he-
facts
he
instead of
doesn't
just
need to.
quoting two authorities and not explaining what those things mean and giving us reasons as to why he has taken that action.
When you're putting something in a gazette notice, you're not going to write your own interpretation of it. You just say, according to the provisions of this and that, by the powers conferred with this.
And
Parts of
that
the
is
law.
where now you will be challenged, because those are not the only things that you consider when you want to revoke a council. There's, as I said, there are 4 different authorities you must consider before you actually do what he did. And him is quoting one.
And you're assuming that he's not aware of any other.
I said he is quoting one.
He's
Eric.
quoted two.
It is one.
He has
He's
quoted two.
legal
One law.
precedents.
Yes. No, he has quoted one law and he has quoted another law.
Those are legal precedents, and legal precedents, one is the law. That's what I mean. I'm not saying he has not mentioned 2 different incidences of law. I'm saying there are 2 issues that are all legal. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying it goes beyond that.
Your interpretation of it is that it goes
His
beyond that.
predecessor could
The
have,
government's
it could have been
interpretation of
argued.
it is different. So this matter, let it go to
It
for
could have
further
been argued.
interpretation.
It
if
could
that's
have
what
been
you'd like.
argued, Eric, that Dr. Matiang'i had also consulted. And why is it that then on 2 separate, not one, 2 separate occasions, 2, the court went and dissolved whatever decision. 2, not one, twice.
Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads and then we come back with this conversation. What's happening at the University of Nairobi? Do we have a vice chancellor? Do we not have a vice chancellor? We don't have a council. Has it been disbanded rightfully or wrongfully? Has the CS for education followed procedure in disbandment of the council? This is the discussion that we're having. We'll also open up the phone lines 0719 012 600. Take a look at traffic.
Traffic.
What? Well, just as we thought, Langata Road this morning is going to be crazy. It's already crazy. Traffic starts at Bomas all the way down and is not moving until you get to around the T-Mall roundabout. Even then, it seems to be a mess. And we have spillover to Bagavi Way, spillover coming all the way towards Madaraka and then down towards Nyayo Stadium. Sorry, folks, but if you're using that area, you're going to have to sit tight because we don't even have, an alternate route for you. Kiambu Road, Ridgeways, all the way down. We've got about 6 lanes happening there. I don't know the magic that happens on that road every morning, but a 2-lane stretch has been turned into 6 lanes this morning. The Eastern Bypass is not moving at all towards Utawala. That would have been an option for you to get off Mombasa Road, but unfortunately that is clogged up all the way as far back as North Airport Road. Yes, like we said, Mombasa Road from Syokimau, it's not happening either. People are trying to use the back way behind the SGR to move, but that's not happening either. It's a definite Monday morning. Let's see how we can clean up a little bit. Show us if you have an alternate route and we'll let you know. The Red Hill Bypass coming off Waiyaki Way is not a route to use right now either. That is chock-a-blocked as well. Spice FM KE, just in case you find something, or give us a call 0719 012 600.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Professor George Magoha, the CS for education.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Newly appointed Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi. At the same time, Professor Magoha also disbanded the university's council and said this will have to be reviewed again and see, actually also said that Professor Mbeche will continue serving as acting Vice Chancellor of Nairobi. This has brought in a lot of politics into the University of Nairobi, where Professor Kiama appears to have said, I am not going anywhere. I'm still the legally appointed Vice Chancellor. Professor Mbeche says, I am also not going anywhere. I've been given the job to serve as acting Vice Chancellor. So, what is happening at the University of Nairobi? Let's also open up the phone lines, 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Procedure followed. What is the procedure? Was it followed? Was it not? You can also post your comments on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter at Spice FM KE. You can also tag us at Eric Latif, at Nduoko, at CT Muga, and our hashtag is The Situation Room. You have the provisions of the court ruling?
That is what I'm actually looking for, the details. I mean, I know exactly what he said.
Yes.
But I'm actually trying to determine the details of what he said. When I get to it, I will read it. I wasn't premising my argument or discussion on what he gazetted. I was actually using as a precedence past rulings on this particular matter and the advice that was given by Professor Muigai. And I was saying this, who himself is a professor of that very same university. And I was saying this, that if I understand the law correctly, a ruling forms what you call a precedent in law. Now, unless there's something that supersedes it, then I'm afraid what the ruling that existed is what we have to go by. And on two separate occasions, as I said, Professor Magoha's predecessor, Dr. Matiang'i, went against court ruling twice. The court made a ruling, he decided otherwise. The court made another ruling. Now, unfortunately, if there is such a history in the same institution and by officials who are in that same ministry, then the interpretation that is open for speculation is that the government has interests, and these interests often collide with the interests of the council. And since the council is then seen as a stumbling block, get rid of them.
Let's go to the phone lines.
A
and
stumbling
hear
block
what
to
people
get
are saying.
your person in, essentially. That's what we're saying.
Steve is calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Steve.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Hey,
We're
good
fine,
morning,
thank
Steve.
you.
I hope you had a good weekend.
We
Yes.
did.
We
Did
did.
you?
Now, just one thing. Listening to your conversation this morning
Yep.
regarding whose interpretation to go by, because
Yes.
you see the CS has started some law, and the court has also made the pronouncement.
Yes.
Now, in principle, the practice is that the only entity competent to interpret the law is the court.
Yes.
So that it does not arise, there does not arise an argument of whose interpretation do we go by.
Right.
Do we go by Judge Odunga's interpretation, or do we go by the CS's interpretation? Once the court has pronounced itself, that is the competent position. Just that this morning, guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve.
So I've gotten the provision that he quoted, one part of the provisions that CS Magoha, beg your pardon, has quoted. This is the Universities Act 2012, right? So 36.1 is about the formation of the Council of the Public University. Of course, it says it shall consist of 9 persons appointed by the Cabinet Secretary as follows. That's the chairperson, the principal secretary in the Ministry of Education, PS in the Ministry of Finance, 5 members appointed by the CS through an open process, and the Vice Chancellor, who shall be an ex-official member of the Council. That's basically looking at, does the CS have the power and the authority to appoint the Council? He quoted that first. So I'm going to give you the second part of the provision, which is where he talks about the Interpretation and General Provisions Act, Chapter 2 of the Laws of Kenya, which is what he says he's using to actually revoke the appointment of these particular people as council members, right? So the issue here is like even Steve has said, it's interpretation of this. Has he followed due process? Has he not? Now, when it comes also... What was the reason behind his revocation of the appointments? Is it because he feels that the council did not follow due process? Is it because he feels that the council was infiltrated by other parties and interests?
And see, this is the
In-
thing.
But-
It
but
would
yes,
not.
why
It would
doesn't he
not be
tell
so
us?
hard to
Picking
say.
this?
Then he should just say. It would not be so difficult to say, because again, you continue to shroud this thing in ambiguity by not saying. You come and you make this declaration and you say no, revoking. You then should be able to thereafter give
Explain.
a reason, just like you said. Those two options.
Simple.
Was it because he felt that they did not follow process? Was it because he felt that there was some other activities that he did not ascribe to or subscribe to that he felt they should have followed? Say it. And be very clear from the very beginning. This is the reason why. Because in the event that you do not do that, what you do is then you then open the door for people to say things like we have pronounced this morning. To say, okay, he was a bit sour because the individual that he would have preferred to be in that position was not selected. Or he, knowing very well the inner workings of the university, having been at this position for 10 years, also then knows something that we don't. And that's what you do. You leave it open to the perception and interpretation of other people who are doing that without the adequate information. I have revoked it because of this. You then now set the tone for people to then go forward and say, all right, let's make the process that we went through for these appointments or these selections very clear. If you feel that we were not clear and that's why you're revoking, let's make it clear. But then by the fact that you just say, by virtue of the fact that I am the CS, I
And
then
I'm
have gone
quoting this
ahead.
and quoting
I'm
this.
quoting this and quoting this. And because of that, I have made that decision. No. You're not giving the information that's necessary.
But-
You need to give
but
the
Eric,
information so we don't know.
If we go by what is available in the media, up to the point where the Public Service Commission handed over their report, having vetted the what is it, clans? I realize these are clans.
Candidates.
Yes.
They could be clients. So, as you want to look at it very well.
Up to that point, the law was being followed because this is the arm of government that actually employs what you could call public officials. Is it not so?
Yes.
They handed it over. Now, if the council did not seek, should we say, consult with the ministry in accordance with the law or the laid down procedures, then this ought to be stated. Because up to that point, we are fine. So what did the council do that went against whatever rules exist or whatever law exists regarding this? And how then do you explain this term consultation? Because the law is with consultation.
That means that the ministry should be involved at some point.
Yes, we're not sure. All we know is that the minister, again, if this is clarified, this discussion will likely come to an abrupt halt.
Finish.
It ends.
We wouldn't even have anything to talk about.
Yes, it's an abrupt halt. But we'll pick it up at the point where there's a ruling on such matters which categorically states that he doesn't have the powers to revoke this. And Professor Mugai's opinion on this matter pointed to the same. And then you go against it. Now that introduces a whole new discussion. You're giving yourself powers you don't have.
So you guys are telling me that the CS appoints and that's where his job ends.
The CS appoints.
Appoints the council.
He's allowed
The council
to appoint.
has two PSs. One PS for finance, one PS for education. So the government is basically represented in this council.
It is, but if they want to dissolve, I read it and I'll read it again. They must follow the constitution, Kenyan one, okay, not any other country, the State Corporations Act, Letters of Interim Authority, and the UN Charter of 2012. These are the guiding authorities in the revocation. But again, according to the university charter, this same charter that they must consult, the only reasons that are given for allowing a member of the council to actually be removed from
To
that position
exit.
is resignation, meaning voluntarily, I've had enough, thank you very
It
much.
sounds like all of them is dependent on the person. None of them is actually external. So the resignation, that is,
Up to you.
person decides to resign.
Inability to exercise due to physical or mental infirmity, or the permanent variety, death. Yes.
Those three.
Four.
Those are four, right? So none of them. If there's a misconduct, if we think that you're not suitable to hold this office, if anybody has
You'll
a
be told to
complaint against
resign.
you, and you must accept.
Well, you know what will follow if you don't you?
Well,
It's a gentleman's position till you resign.
in this country, if there's nobody who can actually push you out,
No, people
you'll stay.
resign. Oh, no. From these boards and councils, people resign.
People, see, if
Eric, people resign, believe me. Even from government boards, people resign.
yes, after
Yes.
protracted issues.
No, some just feel they do not want to. Remember, they're appointed.
Yes.
People resign. They
So
have other
it is
things to do. So
somebody's
people
volition.
don't die on the job. That's what the point I'm trying to make.
Somebody's volition. Somebody has actually to decide that, yeah, I don't feel like I want to go through this pressure. But if somebody wants to basically just muddy the waters, they'll sit.
And also, please remember that the council doesn't have an indefinite term of office.
They have a specified tenure.
Yes, and that term can expire. And at that point, the minister has again the mandate to appoint. So it's not as though they have this position for life. So you're trying to assert that these people. No, there are many provisions that enable these people to exit. The ones that I've pointed out to simply support the view that you just can't kick them out when you want.
When you want.
Because then it likely defeat the purpose for which they were appointed. If they can just be moved around as one sees fit, then they'll be at the behest and at the whim of whoever is at that point Minister for Education.
The phone lines are still open, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. What we're discussing is the University of Nairobi and the intrigues and the ups and downs, the ins and outs of following the appointment of Professor Kiama Getahi as the Vice Chancellor. And then we have seen the revocation of that appointment. We've also seen the revocation and the disbandment of the University's Council. Did Professor George Magoha, the CS for Education, follow procedure? Did the Council itself follow procedure in appointing the VC? Is it a matter of interpretation that has already been given by the courts? Should this be interpreted that to mean that the CS is acting in contravention of a previous court ruling? Is this what it means? And basically, why should we get to a point where a university has to get to a point of matters coming to a head like this?
Eric, the CS
when two
acting-
members of the council actually should be PSs in government.
Eric, the issue here, you have a situation where the CS is acting in obscurity. We are not clear.
It's a clarity that is being sought.
Yes.
It's 14 minutes to 8 o'clock.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice Up and Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. .9 Spice FM, Mombasa. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
So we also take the
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
600, and look at what you're commenting on social media, Spice FM KE Facebook and Spice FM KE Twitter. Let's also broaden the conversation, and we broaden it to a point where we're talking about a government seemingly not knowing what it should be doing.
Go back to what you said before. The government has direct representatives in this council. Direct. Either the PS or an alternate. So, when we talk about government representation and the decision making, are we saying that they waited for this person to be on leave for them to make that decision? Or they had this meeting on Sunday when they knew this guy was going to church? Or Saturday for that matter? I mean, what is it that they're saying? Because government appointed, government represented, and then same government saying they didn't follow the law.
They didn't follow the law.
Explain that.
Yeah, because if we're going to look at what a PS does, and we're saying we have two on this council,
Yeah.
all of these, from the interview process to the selection and the back and forth, they were involved in this process. So exactly what you're saying is that essentially we, as government, have not done our job. We've not followed due process. So what then, in terms of then your appointments, then that initially that didn't make sense from the very beginning, which then would give credence to the belief that he's just being a sourpuss and he's not happy with the selection that was made.
Think about it and do it.
Yeah.
The statement, if you were to verbalize it and even make it colloquial, we, the government, as represented by the council
Yeah.
Yes.
of the University of Nairobi,
Yes.
and represented by two senior government officials in the office of the permanent secretary, arrived at a decision of appointing a new
Vice Chancellor.
substantive Vice Chancellor, and we gave this job to the Public Service Commission, whose mandate is to carry out such functions, which they did duly and handed us a report. We then appointed the Professor Kiama to this particular position. But lo and behold, we, the same government, in the position of the CS, are now coming back and telling us that due process wasn't
not followed.
and that we have to disband ourselves so that we can now create a new self. What on earth is this?
It's where the government seems not to be aware of what it's doing.
This is one of the several cases where
some of one of the several cases. Some reports also emerging that some of these people who are supposed to have been sitting in this council were not sitting because they had been asked earlier to, you are not needed to sit in that council anymore, right? But if it's provided for, the PS for higher education, this particular case was Professor Coletta Suda. Or if we even go into TVETs, it was Dr. Kevin Desai. Sit in this board. PS for finance is clear. It's either Professor Dr. Kamau Thuge, or the new one, Dr. Mbuvimuya. Is that right? It's clear these are the people who are representing the interests of government because we need to know what's happening in this council. They sit in the council. If we are saying that either they were no longer sitting in the council, then we have to question why is it that they were not sitting in the council.
And if this is one of the reasons why CS Magoha has said that this, you should say the reason is because some of the vital individuals who were meant to sit on this council
were not
during this election process were not, but he didn't.
But
this is the thing.
It brings to mind, if we're going to talk about the individual, it brings to mind issues of precious talent. And it brings to mind the issue of schools that exist and are licensed by the government to function, which unfortunately is not the education they offer that is substandard, but the environment in which that education is offered is wanting. Now, we know many schools were shut down. We know. Whether they were reopened, we actually don't know. We know that there were people who were blamed directly because it was their docket and the officers that were responsible for oversight that brought about the disaster we saw in Precious Talent. Do we know what happened to them? We do not. Again, obscurity. So, really, this image of obscurity, if you want to look at it, we can look at it at great length. And the problem is, it will obfuscate and rub away any positive things that this minister and this ministry has done. That will be forgotten quickly.
They've got to open up their communication. They've got to be more transparent.
Simply state what it is you're doing and how you're doing it. We'll ask 2 questions and we'll figure, well, that's what we've been told.
Or stop assuming that some matters, this is just the University of Nairobi. I don't need to tell the public. If you've issued a public statement, then that public statement
this is to the public, exactly. So you need to, and this thing it seems like a magical drug. This thing of being transparent and open will solve so many of your problems at once, and this is something that can then be extrapolated to different arms of government, not just the education sector in this case. Because tell it as it is. This is the reason why. Because then what you do is that you don't give people fodder to then speculate and come up with their own assumptions. Because so many people will say so many different things. Here we've talked about now. This is just scratching the surface of tribal appointments and how they continue to be rife in this country. This is just another way in which government officials believe that they then are God and they can do whatever they want. This is just then another example of how people will choose whom they want to be in plum positions by virtue of the fact that they have some kind of power. This is just me, and I already have 3 perceptions. So you can imagine, you've put it into the public sphere. What are people thinking by virtue of the fact that you're not giving them information? Tell us, I revoked this appointment because of 1, 2, 3. But you didn't do that.
In fact, call a press conference. Because Professor Magoha is very well spoken and he shoots straight from the hip. He's a straight talking CS.
Except in this case.
Yes, he's the one who usually says, this is what I think.
Straight talking is exactly.
This is exactly what I am thinking. This is what we do. And this is where we go. He says, take it. If you don't take it, well, tough. This is one of those instances where I think Professor Magoha should just say, in this particular week, early in the week, call media, say, this is why I have basically decided to take the action that I've taken. I do not feel that they followed procedure, if that's the reason. Or I do not think that this selection process was above board. Also looking at the recent history of this particular position in the University of Nairobi, it has been mired in controversy. There has been a lot of controversy about the office of Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi, about also the council and the selection of the council. We have 2 cases being taken to court. So just to ensure that this whole thing has clarity once and for all this time, just say, this is why I have decided to take the action that I'm taking. Or if he feels that this is unprocedural, just come out clearly and
If
say,
he has a problem with the findings or the outcomes of the activities that the Public Service Commission undertook, they should also say so and give reasons why they have. There are very many forums and very many things that they can clarify, so that when you arrive at the point of talking about disbanding, one understands why it is you have ended up there. But when you start with that, then all these questions unfortunately have to be asked.
It's about optics.
Yes.
It's about optics. Also, just looking at optics, for example, yesterday we heard of a case of the Nairobi hospital where a patient moving from ICU to HDU, get into a lift, they got stuck for many hours.
1 hour and 15 minutes.
1 hour, 15 minutes. Now, despite it being a Sunday, the CS for Health issued a statement immediately and took action and said, this
is what has happened, this is what I heard.
I am aware, and this is what action I'm taking. Clear.
Finish.
So you can see, well, yeah, it's a Sunday, yes, the CS is still informed, yes, the CS can still take action, yes. Kind of clarity that you want to see. And then you shall be followed up by the kind of action that has been taken. We have established that this is what was happening. This is what was wrong. Either there was no power at that point, the generators were not working, or the lift had not been serviced for long, or the lift had issues, but
That lift has had issues before. According to the same
it has been
Right.
reported, yes.
Yes.
This is not the first time.
No.
So this is what we are going to do to ensure that this doesn't happen to another patient, because you know what that means.
ICU to HDU. You know, this isn't the person who is.
This is somebody who's hanging
Yes.
on as it
No,
is.
this isn't a health tourist. This is someone who's actually unwell.
Yes.
And then they're stuck in an elevator
In an
for that long.
elevator.
We are fortunate they didn't pass away. Because that would have been a totally different issue.
Exactly.
And unfortunately now, it'll bring up other issues about that particular hospital
Yes.
and things that people have considered medical malpractice.
Yes.
And
See,
it will all come out.
unearths it.
This is the thing.
Yes.
The door now
And
is
the
open
reason
and everything
management
is going to come
tussles as
in.
well.
Yes, and the tussles that they're having with the management and the board,
board.
and the money and the development and all that, it will now come out.
It opens up a lot of issues. But what I'm liking here is the fact that a CS actually took action
On a Sunday.
on a Sunday. And this is the
I
kind
mean,
of
for us to
clarity
read the
that we're
report, it
seeking.
means it happened on Saturday,
Yeah.
but they took action.
And to
Took
be very
action.
clear and transparent from the very beginning. And this thing, and that's, unfortunately, things that come out much later, a lot of things that we've heard today, just even as we looked at what happened with 29 billion or maybe not happened, this is not something that started yesterday. These are things that would have then been covered up at some point. Somebody was not clear. Somebody didn't say what needed to be said. Somebody sent out a statement that nobody really bothered to pay attention to, kind of like this one. In previous times, CS would have said, no, I revoke, and everybody keeps quiet and says, oh, okay, he has revoked. Back to business as normal. Same thing that could have happened before. Nobody talks about it. It's not transparent. Nobody gives any kind of explanation. And then we come to hear much later that apparently this rot is deeper, much deeper. In fact, they're huge gorges. I'm telling you, as per how bad the situation really is. And we can avoid all of this. It can be avoided. And that's usually the most painful part about some of the catastrophes that we see later when it comes to then development or government practice. It could have been avoided.
Clarity
just
is
because
important.
you were clear. Absolutely.
Clarity is important. We have seen over the weekend the new CS for agriculture being on the ground fighting the locusts. So basically spearheading the fight against the locusts. Well, yes, those things have spread. They've already crossed over into Isiolo in large numbers. They're reported to have crossed over into Baringo County now. They are moving. But you see the CS is actually out there saying, look, this is how we are coordinating. What do you guys need, Isiolo? What do you need? How can we help you? How can we assist? Not saying send a report, we shall receive the report in Nairobi and we shall act on it. It's about the government actually being aware of what's happening and knowing that people need to see action from the government at any particular given time.
And also, one of the things that experts say is not just a question of spraying. Remember, they are breeding. You want to spray during a particular period, the nymph period. Essentially, you want not to kill these particular locusts, but you want to stop the breeding.
Yes.
Because that's what's going to give you problems. Because the numbers will continue increasing. Now, this is not knowledge that is known today. It's knowledge
People
that has
have
been
known
known
this.
for quite some time. Like everything else. Again, as you correctly put it, it could have been avoided.
Right.
If the correct action was taken at the right time.
Action should have been taken. We've been discussing the University of Nairobi. We hope that the dons of the Ministry of Education will actually come out to explain the actions by the CS. Professor George Magoha, why did you disband the council? What problem do you have with the appointment of Professor Kiamagetahi as a VC? What is it that you'd like to see happen to right the wrongs that you feel have been committed here? We shall continue this conversation on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE, Facebook and Twitter. In the next hour, we'll also be discussing what we expect to see today. We expect to see the Embakasi East MP, Babu Owino, being taken to court over what happened on Friday. We'll also be discussing what's happening globally in terms of human trafficking, child trafficking. This coming from a report that we've seen out of the Gambia. Right? So this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. It's now 8 o'clock. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
No good news, folks. Kameshikana kila
Traffic.
mahali, as it is said, from Mombasa Road to Bomas, coming down from Langata Road to Thika Road. Today is the day where everybody is out on the roads, and it is not letting up in any way, shape or form. The traffic on Mombasa Road is at the Gateway Mall turn along Mombasa Road. It is quite unbearable, and there's police on the way, but unfortunately there's nothing they can do about this situation. Bomas of Kenya, the traffic now has formed 4 lanes, obviously understanding that the dip down there is actually quite thin. Komarok Road, heavy traffic along that area. Bunyala Road as well, trying to feed on into the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. That's not happening. Jogo Road, which was now our hope of glory, is not anymore, because we have a huge build-up and trying to get into the city centre by way of the city stadium roundabout. So Gong Road also is chock-a-blocked. It's bumper to bumper everywhere you look. Hopefully there'll be some relief in about half an hour. Let's see what that looks like then. Spice FM KE 0719 012600. Please let us know where you find an alternate, and we'll share that good news this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's also Kenya's biggest conversation at 2 minutes past 8 o'clock. Good morning. We've been talking about the University of Nairobi and what happens there, what we expect to see in future.
You know, the analogy that Ndu mentioned about the locust is actually very apt. Remember, the experts say that why you want to spray these locusts at the nymph stage is because at that point in time, they haven't taken shape, they haven't grown wings, and they cannot fly. But if you miss that point and they fly, one, it is far more difficult to spray, far more difficult to control, essentially, and far more expensive. Similar to this situation. It's at nymph stage, and it is very easy to explain certain things and say, this is where we're coming from. If this isn't handled, then it'll get wings, it'll fly. And then it'll be a totally different issue altogether. Altogether, yes.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room, wherever you are. In Nairobi, 94.4, in Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. So this morning, we're expecting to see the MP for Embakasi East, Babu Owino, that is, his name is Paul Ongili, being taken to court. And of course, he'll be facing charges. And the DCI has said they're going to bring charges of attempted murder or something of that that sort. Let's see whether what charges are brought against him in court. This follows what happened at a club in Kilimani on Friday, where it is alleged
On Thursday,
that
no? Thursday night?
on Friday morning, actually.
Early Friday morning.
Early Friday
Right,
morning.
right.
It's alleged that the MP was patronizing this particular club, and there's a DJ who was playing there, and the DJ is called Felix Orinda, probably known as DJ Evolve. And after some whatever kind of skirmishes or scuffle, it's alleged that the MP fired twice and shot the DJ in the neck. The DJ was rushed to hospital. The good thing is that the family says the DJ is out of danger. He's still in hospital, but he's out of danger. The doctors have been able to operate on him and remove the 2 bullets lodged in his neck.
2.
2 bullets lodged in his neck. Now, this, of course, brought in a lot of issues on Friday and on Saturday and over the weekend over what exactly is happening on this particular case. Because what we know is that, MPs have several times been accused of being heavy-handed. MPs have been accused of acting with impunity. This has brought in the issue of are MPs above the law? Why is a man being allowed to operate with a gun in a public facility? Why is he allowed to be getting intoxicated? Was he intoxicated? Was he not? We don't know. We shall see the evidence that's brought in court by the prosecutors. But it brings in the issue of this being a test on whether the notions that we have of justice and accountability are dead or alive in Kenya. Do we have justice? Do we have accountability? Are we going to get justice for DJ Evolve, that is Felix Orinda? Now, we also know that there are some organizations, the DJs Association has come together and said, we want to act on this particular matter and help our brother who is in hospital. We've also seen some non-governmental organizations, particularly of note, Amnesty International, saying they want to organize some conversation around this on what they want to see happening. And just before we continue the conversation, we have online here Irongo Houghton. He's Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya. Good morning, Irongo.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you doing?
Good morning, Irungo.
Hi, everybody. How
Hi,
excited-
Rogo.
So, Irongo, what happened on Friday? And we've seen that the Amnesty International Kenya has taken some action this week. Tell us exactly what you guys are doing.
So Amnesty was approached by a group of disc jockeys that were very concerned by what happened in the B Club, which of course has gone viral. And as we know, Babu Owino will be brought to court and possibly charged with attempted murder this morning by the Director of Criminal Investigation. Our concern is really that this is not an isolated case. Gun violence has been seen in many of our nightclubs and in our public entertainment spaces. As we know, it thrives on a disrespect for the right to life. It is an expression of lawlessness. But more important, I think, when you have powerful and privileged leaders involved, it is an expression of impunity. We know that the club was operating in defiance of a court order. The MP was clearly using illegal substances that were addictive while handling a licensed firearm. And he was in a club in which there has been a history of deaths, either through narcotic overdose or falling off a banister, or many injuries. So this is something that I think is not just an incident, but it's really a national trend that needs to be brought to an end. The DJs have begun to organize on this, and this is what I think has been really impressive. As an industry, something like 3,000 people have signed the change.org petition that was put up, I think, on Saturday night. And I think what they need to do as an industry now is to speak to the owners of the clubs, the PEREC Association, the National Gun Owners Association, so that there is a collaborative response to essentially keeping our clubs free, violence-free, and free of guns.
So the issue that you are pushing now is to ensure that we don't have guns in these public facilities.
So the demand by the disc jockeys essentially is that they should not be subjected to an environment in which guns can be pushed into their faces. And as we've heard from Felix Orinda's case, 2 bullets were discharged into his neck. So that, it's an extremely dangerous situation. But I think our position as Amnesty essentially is that we will support the DJs to demand that either they be, guns should be free of guns, the clubs should be free of guns, or secondly, that guns, they should be safe. and declarations by club owners that guns will not be on, basically in people's hands as they're drinking alcohol and enjoying themselves.
There's also the issue that you mentioned earlier, the issue of impunity with our leaders, and which is what I'm raising this morning. It's not the first time that we see this kind of cases where leaders are accused of, being, so to speak, misbehaving in public, right? And what action is taken against them. What would you do as Amnesty International when you're helping the DJs in this particular case to also push that agenda?
So I think the first thing is to acknowledge that this is not just an issue for DJs. It's an issue for the workers of clubs. It's the issues for the club owners and the administrators. But it's also an issue for us as the public. When we go to clubs, we don't expect to be shot. And
Right.
places like the United States of America, where people discharge their weapons at very frivolous cases, or simply when an altercation happens, you can see the loss of life. And what we have to do in Kenya is make sure that this does not become a pattern. And who knows next what would be happening? Would we move from pistols to AK-47s to grenades? I mean, it could go to a point where actually it is not safe to go to a nightclub.
Yep. Finally, Irongo, in your own personal opinion, do you see that justice and accountability will be served in this particular case?
So I think Felix Orinda will make his own choices, and at the moment I assume that he is a state witness. It's a criminal case, so by law, it is not dependent on his willingness to proceed to press charges. The charges will be pressed by the government. He, in that case, in that context, is a state witness. I hope that he will stand his ground, and if he doesn't stand his ground for his own safety, that he stands his ground for all people who go into nightclubs, not just DJs, but even patrons. And essentially say that, until everybody is safe in nightclubs, nobody is safe. So that's the first, I think, thing. The second thing is really to look at actually how do you create an environment in which guns are unnecessary. They're not required in nightclubs. When we go to nightclubs, we go to enjoy ourselves, not to kill each other.
Indeed. So you're hosting a meeting this morning of DJs. What's that meeting about?
So a number of DJs have requested to meet this morning, and they're meeting at the YMCA, and it's just about to start, in fact, for the next hour or two, to essentially just think through how to develop a national, public, and collaborative approach that does not pit the Gun Owners Association against DJs, for example, but essentially allows for the Gun Owners Association, PERAC, the Association of Public Entertainment Spaces, to really work together to resolve this issue, so that we don't just respond to an incident in the case of Babu Owino, but we respond to a broader trend.
Thank you very much, Irunga, and we wish you all the best in that meeting.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one. So basically the issues that also Irongo is saying, the DJs have come together and have said, well, it's not the first time that we are seeing people, just brandishing guns and weapons in these public places. Also, it's not the first time that we see people who have some sort of power, whether it's direct or derived from being known to be associated with somebody who has power, coming and operating with absolute impunity. Now, this is a case. Are we actually going to see justice, for example, being served in this particular one? We were discussing Babu Owino last week on a separate matter. So here is one case where the DCI says we want to take him to court. He's going to be presented in court this morning. And the charges, according to what the DCI had said, was going to be attempted murder. So let's see if the DPP agrees with that.
Look at how impunity manifests itself. Leaders making irresponsible utterances. Leaders making inflammatory utterances, what we call incitement utterances. Then you have people in positions of leadership misappropriating funds. Forgive me. People who are in positions of responsibility stealing government funds and wanting to present themselves as hardworking citizens who are cleverer than everybody else, and because of their cleverness have been able to amass all sorts of wealth. Now, this is a further manifestation of the same, because it's the same mindset. I can get away with this. Essentially, I can do what I like.
Yeah.
What I said then was it has consequences. It's unfortunate. The fortunate thing is no one has died.
Yep.
But a shot in the neck, that is now what you call providence. And 2 bullets at that.
Yep.
So it isn't as though this is one individual, but look at where utterances, look at where positions that people take, look at where theft by public servant takes place, and look at the net effect it has on the lives of the individuals. You may not see it, but directly it helps raise inflation.
Yeah.
Directly it helps makes the cost of living go higher. Everything that is supposed to lend itself to good living standards is completely cancelled by some of these things. If today someone is telling us that we have projects that are incomplete and we need money to complete them, we know very well that when we start projects, they're budgeted for, and the money budgeted for them is for completion,
Yep.
not for starting.
No.
So you're telling us that the equivalent of 1 trillion sort of like flew away like the locusts, all right? The truth of the matter is that that's what they're telling us. What do they really need? I mean, there are so many questions to ask, but it's the same monster of impunity manifesting itself in different arenas within the country.
And then now to really understand it, because this is where we come to, right? When we come to the fact that a life could have been lost and probably is going to be affected negatively for a very, very long time as a result of this. We see the direct result of that. Because we can't say what he was thinking or not thinking or by going into this establishment with a weapon. We can't start to decipher all of that. But by virtue of the fact that it was taken there in the first place and felt that you could discharge this weapon and also probably in the back of your head know for a fact that you'll find your way to weasel out of this, as it were. This is the problem that we then now face. And you cannot use power. We have to now really have to look at this. If it was not important before, it is important,
it becomes important now.
To look at it and say these are the consequences of allowing impunity to reign at the levels that it has reigned in this country or any other country for that matter. And to say that to the point whereby a life is taken and it's not a big deal, then folks really have something to worry about.
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in, especially from the fact that, you're looking at a particular leader, and this leader, of course, will be taken to court. So a leader, by that position, just by definition, is somebody who should be an example to the community. It's a role model position.
He has a following that's astounding.
You have a following that is astounding. You get to a point where you find yourself in this kind of situation, then what does it mean, or how does it translate to the public? How do we look at it? How do we view it? The kind of action that the government takes on this particular matter, even if, yes, the person goes to court, he is acquitted, but the process of ensuring that there's accountability for actions taken. Remember, we know that his lawyer came out and said a gun was discharged accidentally. The gun belonged to Babu Owino. Now, of course, the issue of the legalese, that's why I'm not saying that Babu Owino discharged the gun. It's alleged that Babu Owino discharged the gun. But what it means and what it implies is what we're discussing this morning, 17 minutes past 8 o'clock.
Digital and on radio. This is Spice FM. 96.1 Spice FM. Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We acknowledge the people who are listening in from Mombasa. I received a couple of messages. Two different cub people actually tuned in to Spice FM this morning. They're saying they always listen to the Situation Room. Thank you very much. I want to shout out KCS 928H, the taxifier driver Vemvik Oyo in Mombasa. Thank you very much. You say you always listen to the Situation Room. Asante sana. So we're discussing the leadership. So we know that this particular one, we focus on politicians. Politicians are people who seek elective positions. They're people who have said that I want to be elected into a position of authority because I want to serve the people. I want to serve my country. And by serving my country, I'd like to make our lives better. Mine and that of my constituents better. Improve the livelihoods of everybody in this particular country. We're looking about MCAs to governors, to women reps, to senators, to members of parliament, all of them, to the president. These are people who come out and tell us, I want to serve my country. Give me the opportunity. So when we give you the opportunity, we've also given you some respect, some level of acknowledgement that, yes, You came to us, you sought this authority. We've given you the authority, and therefore we shall elevate you to a position where you are a role model to the society. We have seen not once, not twice, not thrice, very many instances where our leaders actually end up misbehaving in public. Last week, we were talking about making utterances that are completely unbecoming of a leader of their stature. We have also seen, for example, a certain member of parliament a couple of years ago going to a way bridge on the Nairobi Nakuru highway and stopping by that way bridge and insulting people who work at that way bridge and even telling them, I am a lawmaker, I make the law.
Ask them if they knew who he was.
Do you know who I am? I am the lawmaker, I make the law. If the law doesn't work my way, I'm going to change it, right? This is the kind of impunity that we've seen. We've seen the kind of impunity where our leaders actually buy big vehicles using our taxpayers' money and also the benefits that we've given them, including telling them that they shall not pay tax like the rest of us when they import vehicles. And then they fit strobe lights on those vehicles, completely against the law. They're not supposed to have strobe lights. So they come in traffic using the wrong side of the road and overlapping and wanting us to give them way because they are waheshimiwa. This is the kind of impunity that we see on a daily basis in our lives. Then we also see them getting into areas of entertainment. And because I am waheshimiwa, for example, move away from here. I shall use this as my reserved seating space. Or because I am a mheshimiwa, I shall demand of a DJ to play a certain type of song. And if that DJ does not play that song, he shall face the consequences.
And the consequences in this case?
And the consequences will include, and not limited to, dealing with your neck. Right? This impunity needs to be visited in court. And when it's taken to court, we need to see action. Action here is seeing justice being served. Action here is seeing accountability for the kind of actions that our leaders are taking. And this is what I'm saying. This particular case of Babu Owino should serve as a litmus test. Do we actually have justice and accountability working? Is it dead or alive in the Republic of Kenya?
There was a case that involved Moses Kure, if I'm not wrong, not too long ago. He allegedly assaulted a woman and he was taken in.
Yes.
Now, my understanding of the way the police works, they wouldn't take you in if they didn't have evidence. What they now wait to do is to present it in court. When you give, as you say correctly, the powers that we, the public, give our members of parliament, we also give them responsibility. And what we're seeing, our payment for having given them all this is a display of responsibility of the highest possible order. People doing precisely what they think suits them best, in total disregard to the mandate of the office and to the requirements of responsibility which is placed upon them by virtue of the office.
If you look at the general population, the wider population, people don't engage in certain activities because they know that if they did, they would get in trouble, right?
There'd be dire consequences.
There would be consequences. I'm going to get stuck if I actually do this. But unfortunately, what we see with leaders, and that should be quite worrisome to us and actually should point us in some kind of direction when it then comes to selecting those who we do select in positions of power. We have leaders who do things regardless of the fact that there is a law in place that stops you from doing these things. And also because they know that even if they do them, there will not be consequences. Do you see that? It's a stark difference. And the power lies in the hands of the majority who understand that they should not engage in such activities because they will get in trouble. The few are the ones who actually go ahead and do whatever they want, knowing full well that nothing will happen to them.
This is a case of Mtadu.
Exactly. And it's interesting because one of my favorite authors, Chinua Achebe, said not recently, but he was quoted as having said, there is a moral obligation, I think, not to ally oneself with power against the powerless. So this is not something you want to do.
It's a moral obligation.
It's a moral obligation. Apart from governance and leadership and my following and all of these other things, it's a moral obligation, right and wrong. Because then you're in a position of power. You don't then take that power to then use against those who don't have it.
Or
Across the
who
world.
you think don't have it.
Or who you think don't have it.
Yes, they actually do.
Look at what we see this morning.
Powerless
Less.
to
They
you.
seem powerless to you.
But they actually
They
not
actually are
powerless.
not. Look at the evidence of what we see this morning. Over 3,000 people in one profession coming together and saying, absolutely not. We will not take this. It cannot be the case that you can stand up then and do whatever you want. Now, it seems to me, previously I would have said, well, you know what, maybe in terms of protests, and CT would have said, no, do people actually do protest? People actually come out and they say what it is that they feel, or they agitate for some kind of change, or agitate for some kind of
And
action.
they actually do
And
know
they
what they
actually
want.
do know what they want. Because here, last week, we saw examples of this. The impunity with which you want to run around here and not do that job which we said you should do must stop. We get on the street, people need to drink that pepper drink for some hours. It's okay. Let's go ahead and do that. In this case, people in a profession for who somebody's really, it would have taken that bullet to go in a different direction for this man to have died.
Yes.
Okay? Medically speaking, it's something that actually...
It's almost miraculous.
Yes, it's almost miraculous that he
Two
didn't. That
bullets.
two
At
bullets.
close range.
That he did not die.
Video footage emerged
Yeah.
online, remember?
That he did not die. And so now you have people in his profession who said, you know what, I'm sorry, but we are not going to take this, and say, look, we demand justice. In as much as it is a litmus test for the legal judiciary side of things, unfortunately, a lot of the sentiments that we're hearing, and I'm going to quote what somebody has said, is that any associate of this government doesn't follow court orders at all. They are above the law in all aspects. I'm not surprised anyway. From president to local chiefs, breaking the law is their god of Uji, and that's where we are. This is a sentiment that's coming from Kenyans.
It's a normal thing.
It's
But
very normal.
ask yourself a simple question.
You-
if you take
you-
this discussion further. Something as simple as people who are supposed to have been paid by the government for the displacement due to the use of land, say for the SGR, have they all been paid? The answer will be no.
No.
They haven't all been paid. People who do business with county governments, people who do business with the government, yes, did give an edict that they must all be paid. Have they all been paid? No.
No, they haven't.
But that's not really my discussion. In the intervening time when they haven't been paid, do you know the consequences of that? The trickle-down effect of the consequences. If you think of somebody who employs others who depend on this and take that chain out to the bottom, you'll find people have not been able to pay fees to simply eke a living. People have not been able to afford medical fees. People have, in short, lives have been disrupted.
People can't afford life.
Yes. Now, that's what happens when you have impunity on that scale. And the net result is people actually die, people who don't need to die. When we talk about hospitals without medication, people who haven't been paid because the money they were supposed to be paid somehow didn't go where it should go. You're talking about simple, basic utilities within health facilities not being present. What do you think you're talking about? It's the same thing. They're budgeted for. The money is provided.
In fact, the money is there. Like if you talk about now the payment of these pending bills, the money is there. The issue is the verification,
Yes.
right? Which is a crucial point, and you understand, yes, verify. But you'll find the officers who are supposed to be verifying are acting slowly.
Or doing their own thing.
They're just doing their own things.
They've
It
been
doesn't
told,
matter.
Make sure that you prioritize with the oldest invoices.
Yeah.
No, but they have a buddy who did some job last year.
And they need to sort him out. And plus, there's some X amount
Treasury
for
will
this.
reject that thing because they'll tell you, excuse me, this is what we told you. We know. And the beauty of that system is they know when
They
you
can
did your
see-
work.
they can see.
They know. And they tell you. And they take it back and you do it all over again. Further delay.
Impunity
Yes,
at play.
exactly.
Total impunity at play. There's a saying, of course, that goes around in the country that I will beat you and take you to hospital. We saw it on Friday.
But this is what, and you look,
I
obviously,
will shoot you and take you
this
to
has
hospital.
not gone to court yet. It's like it's going to court this morning. But I mean, just from what we've said, then at some point you realize that they then believe that the power that they then wield is kind of like a band-aid for everything. I cut my wrist, band-aid. In this case, you shot somebody, pay his hospital bill. You shot somebody, make sure that his surgery, his entire bill is taken care of. And you think that that's going
And
to
that
be
should be
enough.
enough.
That's enough to sort this
I
problem.
sorted you out.
And then we're going to make sure that you don't die. And then we'll make sure, okay, maybe over the next couple of, months, we'll give you some money to kind of, take care of that. But that's what we see. And I think we need to get to the point where, as individuals, for whom I believe the power lies in the hands of these people, you have to be able to call these things out and say it as it is. How much money is enough to replace a life? How much money is enough? And God forbid that this individual had passed on, how much money then would you be able to dole out to give to his wife and his children, and to say that is enough then, or whomever his close,
It
his
betrays
loved
the
ones
thinking.
are?
The thinking is
It
I can
betrays
slap
the
you
thinking 100%.
I'll slap you and pay you.
There you go.
I
And
will
that
beat
should
you
be
and
enough.
pay you. I will shoot you and pay you.
The responsibility that has been placed on money in this country that should be able to cover up anything that is done, whether it's taking a life, whether it is getting yourself out of a mess because you stole it in the first place, the responsibility that has been placed on money to cover up things done immorally, to cover up things done misappropriately, is way too much.
You know, we've also seen this kind of incidences of shooting. In 2017, there's a man who was jailed for 5 years of a manslaughter because he was the operator of a club called Club Click on Baricho Road in Nairobi. His name was Jackson Maina Wangoi. He shot and killed a reveler in that club called Kevin Odwor. He was a 24-year-old man. Basically, in the club, there was a commotion. The commotion was, this young man was accused of having stolen a mobile phone. And the bouncers came and, saved him from the mob. And the owner of the club told him, take him to the rooftop. Went with the man to the rooftop, shot the man. Man died. Right? This case went to court that was in 2012, went to court. Fortunately, it went to conclusion of the case in 2017, and the man, Jackson Maina Wangoi, was jailed for 5 years of manslaughter. And this is what we're talking about. Just assuming that just because I have a gun, because I'm in a position, because I know someone. Who do you know? It has transcended from just me being in position of authority to everybody else in my network. But I know Eric. I can behave the way I want to behave because I know Eric. This is what we are saying is wrong and it needs to end. It's 8:30. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads and continue the conversation, and also open up your phone line so that you can join the conversation. 0719 012 600.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, we're looking at a four-lane
Traffic.
situation on Kiambu Road, and right about 8:30, it's not moving on Thika Road at all. And this seems to be the situation on Mombasa Road. The feeder roads that would definitely help, or the bypasses, the eastern bypass, the southern bypass, are actually bumper to bumper. The southern bypass, now trying to join Mombasa Road, is not giving out because, of course, what we see on Mombasa Road this morning, guys, it is a mess wherever you look, unfortunately. Everybody's asking, what's happening on Juja Road? It's traffic again. The mess that is as Westlands, all the way from the ABC place onto the other side of the road, in and outbound Westlands today, it's crazy. The jam is all the way at Galleria on Langata Road, and it starts at Huruma going towards Juja Road. So today it's definitely a manic Monday. Let's see what happens in a short while, but for now you're going to have to be patient until we find an alternate, or unless your patience actually doesn't wear thin. 0719012600. Tell us if you find an alternate. Spice FM KE, send us a shout on Twitter. Let's see how we can keep ourselves moving.
96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Join the conversation on Facebook, Spice FM KE. On Twitter, at Spice FM KE. You can also tag us at CT Muga, at Nduoko, at Eric Latif. We're discussing impunity. And the case of Babu Owino, his real name is actually Paul Ongili, the MP for Embakasi East, who's due to be taken to court this morning. This should serve as a litmus test on whether the notions of justice and accountability are dead or alive in Kenya.
Unfortunately, in this case, because we have two that kind of compounds the issue, is the fact that, a lot of people feel that this will be tied up in legalese for a very long period of time. And in terms of justice, we will not see the wheels of justice turning in favor of this young man whose life was threatened in this case. And it's unfortunate because the attitude, history begets an attitude.
Yep.
And in this case, this is what people have seen. We've had people who've lost their lives when it comes to a popular politician or a popular person, a person who is influential, let's say. And unfortunately, the punishment has never come their way, ever come their way.
You know, when the DPP was here the other day, he told us that how he picked the cases that he's taken to court, he decided to go with high impact cases.
High
In terms of
profile,
high profile, high impact. This is a high profile, so you'll no longer say that, we don't take big fish to court. We've taken governors, we've taken ministers to court, we've taken heads of departments, that is PSS, to court. This should serve as another one of those where he's talking about now, this is not about corruption, it's about crime and criminal activity and impunity. Same. It's a high-profile case. Take it to court. Let it serve as a lesson to the others that, well, you don't just go about doing things as you wish to do or without thinking of the consequences. Always consider the consequences of your actions.
This could be a test to show if then they were really serious about this. Of course, we don't know. We don't know how the process will run. We don't know what will be tabled in terms of evidence. We don't know who is going to say what.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we don't even know if anything is going to be spun, how well spun it will be spun, and then that be used in terms of evidence. But unfortunately, the main sentiment right now is that without any kind of clamor, without any kind of protest for justice, that it is going to go in his favor, just by virtue of the fact that historically this is what we have seen. And it actually pains me to say this, but unfortunately that's what we see in front of us.
We see it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
In the case of the MP who went to the weighbridge, I was actually very, very, very vocal against this and saying, you know what, this should serve as a lesson. Chapter 6 of the Constitution is very clear on how you behave as a leader. This is what it entails. So when you go and insult public officers who are in the course of their duty, not because of something that they've done wrong, but because of what they're supposed to do, you go and insult them. Yes, you're taken to court. The court case takes forever to conclude, and then it's just a slap in the wrist. What message do we send? This happens over and over and over again. We see images emerging on social media all the time of people who feel that because you are a politician, therefore you're going to use the wrong side of the road and expect people to move. And we have seen citizens actually saying, no, I am not moving. It doesn't matter who you are. As long as you're not an ambulance or a police vehicle with a siren, I'm not moving just because you're coming. And unless we see such people actually being taken to court, because that is a clear, open violation of the law, you are doing the wrong thing on the road, you're using the wrong side of the road, you should be taken to court. We don't see these things being taken to court unless we start seeing such kind of things actually people being held to account. We start seeing them going through the process of justice.
Actually, not very long ago, there was an issue in the papers. This was 2017. A gentleman by the name of Dixon Munene. He was in the papers because he had a master's while serving time in committee. Now, he's lucky to be serving time because he had actually been sentenced to death to hang. I think in this country we don't hang people anymore. But his co-accused, a certain gentleman by the name of Dixon Chepkonga, was acquitted. Why was he in this position? They had been responsible for the death of a young man. A brawl began in a bar, nightclub. It proceeded outside. Somebody got shot. This young man died. Really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, one of these cases you hear of and you feel, goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
Now, the gentleman, the young man who died had an influential parent, an influential father.
Yeah.
But that's not the reason why this case was one which anybody listening to wondered and asked, but did this young man actually need to die? He didn't. It was an altercation. People disagree in bars. But the moment you have a situation where people carry weapons, it's not even the weapons, it's the impunity. Because there's a certain responsibility. By the way, it's not very easy to get a gun in this country legally. No, it's not. And when you do, the regulations guarding that you're trained. Don't think you're given a gun and just told, go forth and multiply. No. There are laws governing where you keep that gun, how you discharge it, how you do all sorts of things. And people even come to your house to determine whether you have a place where you can actually keep it safe and where it's out of well, it's not easy to access. So having a gun in this country is not easy. So, but those who have a responsibility and they're trained to understand it. So when it causes someone's death, the only guilty individual or premise here is impunity, because somebody feels they can get away with it.
Oh, yes. I can get away with it.
They have seen others get away with it. The case of the APs who I believe they've been incarcerated for killing a lawyer. Why? This
Still
person-
ongoing.
It's still ongoing. But they are in remand. Is it not so?
Yes.
The person actually complained. All the person did was highlight a situation that they thought was unfair. That's all they did.
Yep.
Now look at
And
what.
hired a lawyer to prosecute the case for him.
That's it. That's it. Now look at what happens with impunity. Someone who has the authority and the power and forgets the responsibility goes decides, why are these people joking with us?
With us.
Something as simple.
Tumuondoe.
That's it.
Let's remove this problem. It's a thorn in the flesh, just pluck out the thorn.
And in thinking you're removing the problem, you create a problem for yourself, which you will never remove.
A bigger one.
You will never, ever, ever remove.
There's a comment here as we are taking the comments at Spice of MKE, Facebook and Twitter. There is a pathology at work to back up the fact that Babu Owino will likely get away with this, just as so many have before him. Prominent cases being those of Sharon Tieno or Mercy Keino. The fact is, just like Lenin said, everything is connected to everything else. Simply put, the system is afraid of doing away with impunity because they are scared that they'll be next. Impunity protects everyone. The system is afraid of taking action because they're feeling, well, if we use this as a lesson to everybody else, we also are guilty of something that we've done. And we are likely to be caught up in this web. So the system will sort of seem to protect. We're saying, no, let's break the shackles of this impunity.
You know, with every movement of this sort, I don't know whether those who think that they're covered or protected by the law of impunity see this. There are always changes, some not so subtle. In the past, when such things happened, you didn't have, for instance, an association of DJs, or you didn't have an active, there was Amnesty International, but you didn't see them taking up cases of this sort
No.
and it being made public.
Yes.
See, there's the making public.
Yeah.
The moment there are 3,000 people signing a petition, that isn't a small number. Why did Kura and all the people who are associated with the building of this urban road, why did they think they could get away with it? Because they've gotten away with it.
They have been,
figured
yes.
they didn't need to.
Yes.
But now, when noise reaches the decibels, this one reached, and then it's carried on, and other people are saying, no, I think these people listen to this noise, so why don't we make a little of it? You know, the next thing is your job.
Absolutely. You will go.
They may not think so. I don't know why they're not reading the mood of the country right now. This president, whom people have continuously said does nothing, and I've said, be grateful you have a patient president who seems to understand things. Because the day he changes, you will rue the day you had a different opinion. We have a situation where we keep saying, today, Eric, you are saying that the fact that someone doesn't agree with a certain aspect doesn't mean that they disagree with the actual premise or principle of it. And in theory, what you're saying is right. But if you have a history of, if I may use a Kenyan term, rubbishing everything that has to do with a certain concept,
Yeah.
how else can I view it as other than you being opposed to it?
Right.
I mean, I may want to think otherwise, but your utterances will
Show me that you're against it.
that
Absolutely.
well, or at the very least, you're not for it. Okay. Now, here we have a situation where we're discussing impunity. What do you think that is? You are a deputy of a president, and every action that you say seems to disregard whatever decision or whatever edicts the president pronounces. You may say you support him, but your actions say the complete opposite. Now, how exactly is someone supposed to read that? Are you for the president or are you against the president? You know, this is politics. Politics is not just a question of saying I'm for the person. You show and you state those two things. If you change your mind, we will take and pay heed to what you're saying. We'll say, no, this guy has changed. Why? We can't see you every day, but we follow what you say. Now, back to this gentleman who claims, or is it a lady, that this is impunity and that nothing will happen. That has been the case, but they've got it wrong. People are going to pay for their crimes. You may think it isn't going to happen.
In due course.
No. This is not even in due course. The due course has arrived. The due course has arrived.
Because I think that's what the issue as well is how long will it
The
take?
due course, look, you have to take these matters to court. It doesn't matter what you do. You can fast track it, but they have to go to court. You can't arrest the person and decide that they are guilty. No.
Due process must be followed.
It must be followed, and unfortunately, that will take some time. Not all the time in the world, but it will take some time. Now, the onus now is on the DPP and the court to decide whether they can use the mechanisms at their disposal to fast track some of these cases, because they can.
This action comes against the backdrop of, remember, was it last year or the year before, when the Interior Ministry had said, we are revoking the licenses of all gun owners, right? Yes. Everybody who holds a gun license, we are revoking. You need to apply afresh, because we realize that there are very many people who have gone through unscrupulous means of acquiring these particular licenses. So, reviewing again and seeing, so who exactly holds a gun in this country, and the reason that you give for owning a gun. Many people will tell you it's because I work in a sensitive industry. I am actually targeted, or the kind of activities that I do, I'm a target for criminals to actually come and attack me.
Really?
But the point is, if we just look at it, it doesn't matter how many times you review it. The bottom line is, it's because you know someone.
Yes.
Or you're somebody important in the society. Because everybody does something that they're likely to be attacked by a thug. In fact,
thugs don't give you notice. You know that
people are attacked by thugs everywhere in this
don't
country.
sort of
Not all of us have
say,
guns.
tomorrow we're coming at 11.
Tomorrow
No.
we're coming.
Or this week we're in this area and we've chosen you to be attacked
Expect
at
that I will
this hour.
visit
No,
you.
you
Or
don't.
because you hold this position in the society, you are the only one we can rob.
No.
And we can't rob anybody else. You're the only one we can
The
rob.
vast majority of cases we hear of are poor people who have been attacked, people who don't have much being attacked. That's the bulk of the people who are attacked.
So you see, the people who hold these gun licenses are people who have influence in the society. And now here you are. You also hold this position of influence. You therefore have a gun. It's expected that you shall hold this gun with responsibility. What exactly is it that you shall do when you have the gun? And when Amnesty International and the DJs are meeting this morning and saying, the pub and restaurant owners association, please, we'd like to have a conversation with you. The National Gun Owners Association, let's have a conversation with you. Let's ensure that we don't have guns coming to such places where somebody is coming with a gun and imbibing in alcohol, where their thinking will be impaired because of what they're consuming, and yet they're holding a loaded gun. Let's ensure this. Why do we need to get to these points of conversations?
By the way,
shouldn't it be obvious?
It not only is it obvious, it's mandatory. Why do you think it is when you go to many public places, they check you and they have these sensors that sort of like, which make this beeping sound? It's for that purpose. There are places I know of where they will actually call you aside and say, no, go to that room, put this thing over there.
Deposit your weapon
lock
there.
it. Here's your key. When you come out, you can actually take
go
it
and
out.
get it there.
They understand all these things.
Yes.
It's very clear.
Yes.
So when you see people like this getting into a place like that, it's that impunity.
Yes.
Second thing is, we're also told and we understand that this pub had been told, do not operate.
Not once.
There's a court order actually telling this pub, do not operate.
Do not operate.
And yet it's open, it's operating, and in clear view and with the knowledge of everybody in government, yet it's operating. Why? Because of the person, the association.
Same impunity.
Association. The person who knows, the person who knows,
the person who knows.
owes the place, has some influence in society. Impunity. Let's go to the phone lines. Teddy, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're fine, thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's a nice conversation that we brought today.
Asante.
And I think people that you should blame. First of all, it is us as citizens, and people also who give out maybe permissions to these leaders to run for elections. Because we know Babu since Nairobi University. We should be scrutinizing these people from where they were. Secondly, I'll give you another example of another leader. Take somebody like Ferdinand Oitito.
Yep.
Oitito was somebody who used to throw stones while in Embakasi, and you elect that person as a governor. Now you see. So I think we have a problem in our country, and it is a problem that all of us should come into conversation and see what we can do. So we would like now to test the courts with this. If Babu Owino manages to maybe
if he goes free, yes.
I'll tell you, in Kenya, we'll never get even justice, even in the cases of corruption.
So this one will be an indicator for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Asante sana, Teddy. 0719-012-600. What are your views on this? We're discussing what we're expecting to see in court this morning. Babu Owino, the MP for Embakasi East, is due to be presented in court this morning. The DCI had said on over the weekend that they intend to take a case against him to court through the DPP, of course, and this will be attempted murder because of the shooting that happened at B Club on Friday morning. A DJ Evolve, was shot twice in the neck. Good thing is that he's out of danger. The news that we're getting out of the hospital from his parents is that he's out of danger. The bullets have been removed from the neck. But the fact of the matter is a gun was in the club, a gun was discharged, and the bullets went into the neck of an innocent man who was working at the club.
And
Now, it's alleged that
Yes.
MP Babu Owino is the one who shot the man. Now, the gun also is a licensed firearm that belongs to Babu Owino.
Right.
Eric, this case of this gentleman's health is not over. No. He may have survived the two bullet wounds, but there is the aftermath of the injury. Now, you do not know how that is going to be managed and what will come
physical
of it.
impact
Yes,
of that.
you do not know what will come of it. Yes, it didn't nick any vital artery or any vital vein, yes, but it did lodge itself in his neck. And believe me, such injuries you may be well, you may be stable, but they do have consequences.
Indeed.
Yes, the only saving grace is he's a young fellow, and being young, the chances of his quick recovery may be high, but there is a lot that will probably need to be done even after his discharge from hospital.
This impunity needs to be taken to a point. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, when he visited us 2 weeks ago, he told us that he picks cases of high impact and, to show that this is the work that DPP is doing. It also helps as a deterrent. So this is one of those that we'd urge the DPP to take up.
Well, I would argue this is a
And
case
push.
that Babu Owino has taken to him.
Oh, yes. Babu Owino has clearly
He has
presented a
taken
case to the
this case
DPP.
to the DPP.
To the-
And
yeah.
the DPP should take the responsibility and say, Asante Sana for bringing this one. Now let's use this one as the poster case for all incidences of impunity, where leaders go with the sense of impunity and feeling exceedingly important, more important than their constituents, and with the actions, with the utterances, with what they do, what they don't do. 0719-012-600. Also, we're taking your comments on social media handles, Spice FM KE, Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter. Good morning. It's 10 minutes to 9.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Kenya's
Nairobi.
biggest conversation. Let's go to the phone lines. From Nakuru, Zachary, good morning.
Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning,
to you.
Zachary.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear you. Now, the problem we have in Kenya, once we see those readers, like now Mr. Babu Owino,
Yep.
and I feel ashamed to call him Mr. because he is a spoiled brat.
Okay.
It's a reflection of ourselves. And the tragedy of times is that, you see, like now the program that you are holding,
Yep.
very few people are listening, so that they get informed, yeah? And when the elections are called, everybody knows everything. Everybody is going to participate,
Yep.
but with half information. We are not investing in, that is the general public, we are not investing in getting
Information.
the right information. Like somebody is there called and asked, okay,
Yep.
who on earth elected Mr. Waitito?
Yep.
A self-confessed stone thrower.
Yep.
He takes no farm policies
Yep.
to be discussed. Okay, you know those people, they fear constructive discussions.
Yeah.
They thrive on theatrics. Look at Mr. Sonko. He's right on. He has all along thrived on
Theatrics.
You know, things that do not require a lot of brain, okay? Mr. Waitito and others, okay? Therefore, when we have people like Mr. the so-called Owino shooting, at will, that is a reflection of ourselves. I'm very sure that if elections were to be called tomorrow, you will still see the same guys being recycled. Who by who? Not the devils will come from hell
but
and it is us people.
Yeah.
Yes. So it shows that we, the general the general public, we are not investing.
So impunity starts with us.
Definitely, and we should not make a lot of noise as you who is that is ourselves. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Zachary.
Let me tell you one thing, my friend.
Yeah.
We are told that we are going to heaven. If any of Kenyan politicians is going to be allowed to speak in heaven or acting, given any capacity, my friends, I do not want to go there, okay?
Okay, Zachary, have a good one. Roderick, good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you,
Roderick. How are you?
This is the first time I'm talking to you guys.
Yes, imagine this travesty.
Where is the lady?
The lady is away for now.
Nyeri.
Away for now.
She's away for now.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, the thing is this. Kenyans, we have no moral authority to complain about our leaders.
Yeah.
We have better options, but we love theatrics, visanga, upuzi, so tupambane na hali yetu. Let's pay for our sins. We like to be used and abused, so let's just take it quietly na unyamaze.
We've made our bed.
Governor is Sonko, your MP is Babu Owino, your MCA is a criminal, and you are the voter.
So are you saying that we shouldn't fight impunity then, Roderick? Well, he's gone. Why? Is this the direction that you're saying? Because impunity starts with the people who make the choice. Therefore, we should let it pass.
He has a point. He actually does have a very, very valid point.
What's that point?
The point is that people such as the gentleman we are speaking of are actually duly elected by the public.
Yeah, with certain expectations.
Yes, but what expectations when he has demonstrated clearly what he actually is?
Who he is.
This road to Damascus experience that you think he's going to have, that will bring about some monumental change. When do you think it's going to happen? The position that we elect these people to is more likely to exacerbate, to increase, to further the tendencies they had before.
So we encourage them to do this. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying precisely.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Harriet in Mombasa. Good morning, Harriet.
How are you?
Good
morning.
morning.
There's a guy called Roderick who just spoke. What
Yes.
I have been wanting to call in and say for a long, long time. That it's up to us, the voter votes. We decide what we want. And so we have no business even tuning into spies on a daily basis to complain about our leaders.
Yep.
This thought first struck me when we were first discussing the flooding in Mombasa. It was terrible. We were suffering.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, now the floods are not here anymore.
And you forgotten?
But we've forgotten, yes, exactly. So we have forgotten about our trouble. Back to BBI, we just back to politicking. Nobody talks about what the voter expects, what I expect at the end of the day as a citizen.
Yeah.
It's all about politics. And so if we choose the leaders who we decide to have, then we really shouldn't complain. Even your job, if you really think about it, on a daily basis, when you wake up to come to work and have us call in or listen in on the problems we are facing, well, at the end of the day, when that problem is forgotten, we go back to
factory settings.
Yes. If you can call it that. We go back to the same leaders. We never learn.
Actually, may I suggest an alternative perspective to it?
Yes.
If people have chosen to live by a certain dictum, meaning you've decided that it's apathy, I am not going to care.
Yes.
One of the things we try to do is remove you from that apathy. We don't just mention the problem, we'll talk to you about the consequences. And at some point, we'll talk to you about your contribution to it, meaning, and we're going to continue doing it until you realize that your inactivity contributes to your problem. And then we'll talk to you about possible solutions.
Yes.
You must, yes.
the possible solution, and I only see one solution,
Yes.
is choosing the right leader. We
Making
are
the right choices.
tribal, I don't know. Yeah, making the right choice, but how to have a collective decision made by every Kenyan so that we put the right person is
That's why you're seeing I think the difficulty is not as big as you see it, Harriet. Maybe the issue would be having wider conversations with people, right?
Yes.
Because just like the gentleman from Nakuru who called and said, the issue is, are we accessing the right information?
Right.
If we are not consuming the right information, then we will not make the right choices. So it's about having the right information constantly and all the time.
how do we raise this awareness? How do we spread that information?
We're doing that with you. Then you do that again with your circles.
And I'm sure you have a chama, a group of friends, church group, religious people who you gather with from time to time, and at some point discussions come up political, don't they?
These are where the conversations should take place.
Sorry?
What's likely to happen?
Yes.
The kind of people who hang around you are probably like-minded.
Yes.
The kind of audience you have is most likely, on average, like-minded.
Yep.
So we would all agree on one thing, but to get to, like yesterday, I met some agents, housing agents.
Harriet, let me go to the top of the hour so we can take a look at traffic, and then maybe we can have the conversation continuing. Asante sana. It's 0719-012-600. The conversation continues as well on our social media platforms. That's Spice FM KE, Facebook, Twitter, and also log on to our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads this morning at 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
We don't have the answers as to what is causing this traffic of epic proportions today in all parts of the city, but we just know that quite a lot of vehicular traffic is what is being experienced today, from Langata Road to Embakasi to Mombasa Road, coming off Westlands. I know it's that people have rested for 2 days and then we come back to what is traffic on a Monday morning, but today is something for the books, that's for sure. So I'm trying to get into the city centre from Thika Road today, and then using the Globe Cinema roundabout, and then coming into the CBD is an absolute headache. Outer Ring, Kariobangi, Juja Road. Others are actually deciding to walk because people are stranded because of the fact that traffic is so slow today. And this is what we're experiencing. Probably going to experience it for another half hour or so, but you'll get there eventually, folks. It's a typical Monday morning. Unless there's something outside of this, do let us know. Spice FM KE. Give us a call, 0719-012-600, and we'll spread the word. But for now, folks, you got to sit tight.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's always important to have meaningful conversations. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. This morning, we have been discussing various matters. The University of Nairobi. You've been discussing the case coming in court against Mr. Paul Ongili, a.k.a. Babu Owino, the Embakasi East MP. Now, let's talk about what happens globally, and this is about, can you call it sex tourism? Or human trafficking.
Human trafficking. Yeah, definitely another example of how impunity or, non-working political systems or governance systems in place by countries can actually breed a culture of despair. Okay, we're going to take a hop, skip, and a jump to the West African country of the Gambia this morning, for which Banjul is the capital. But in a small town just northeast of Banjul is called Kolokololi. And here we have what many would describe as the unmentionables happening now where children are involved. To give a little bit of a history of a background to this in terms of what's happening, the Gambia has a population of 2.1 million people. That's maybe about a third of what is in Nairobi alone. And what we see happening here is that the situation is dire in terms of the economic strains that people are going through as a result of poor governance, and it's quite easy to draw parallels between the two. And what we've seen most recently is that we have quite a number of foreign tourists who have come into the country and have become residents, and what they've then done is they engage themselves in wide open child trafficking, sex trafficking. And when we're talking about children in this case, we're talking between the ages of 2 and 9. Yes, definitely eyebrow raising stuff that is going on here. And even more eyebrow raising is that children are sold for sex as low as young, or rather for as little as £2. Now, if we're going to do £2, it's less than 400 shillings. How bad is it that you decide to then take your child and sell them off for 400 bob, not knowing what's going to happen to them thereafter, but you have something in your stomach for the day? Now, this is what is happening, and over time, we've seen calls for the current president, Mr. Adama Barrow, to actually give up his seat. His 3-year term is coming to an end, and the people of Gambia have said no. The way we've seen things go, we would actually prefer that you were not in government. Now, they've actually written a letter to him, and they've said, from what we see, we are not going to be able to continue in this manner anymore. We'd rather that you actually give up your seat. The Gambian people desire for a democratic foundation in the Gambia, which apparently they were promised. But it is clear that they've come to see that what the president is doing is going against his promises, adopting more practices of the former regime, not in terms of arbitrary arrests and enforced disappearances, but with the disfigurement of the rule of law, lack of transparency, and misuse of public resources. And this has trickled down to the fact that the people of the country have no choice but to basically sell their own in order to survive. And what we're saying now is that here is an example of how dysfunctional systems of government can actually lead to situations of utter despair. And we need to see these are some of the consequences that we're talking about that we actually can avoid. So in Gambia in January 2020, children are actually being sold for as little as £2. And when we say being sold, it's not take, you return tomorrow. It's take.
It's not higher.
It's not being sold so you can, people who are looking to have children. No. Because we have that other case. No. Where people who don't have kids are actually just looking to adopt children. No. This is for exploitation.
These are to pedophiles.
These are to pedophiles who actually, this is their fetish that they're trying to, basically get on with, young children, and they pay. They also, so here are two things. One, they are feeding their fetish. Two, they realize that these people are desperate for any kind of money, so they're going to give it to them and then take their children and go. And we have pictures of, and all the pictures that are available right now are of older men in their 50s who are walking around with 8-year-old girls and doing with them whatever they please because they have paid for it. But this is just the surface of the problem. Going deeper, we see the reasons why parents will go to the point whereby they will sell their children is because the country on a whole is actually doing quite terribly. An entire country with a population of 2.2 million people is not able to feed its people. Now, we have even calls for the previous president, Gemma, to be returned. Now, Barrow, his term is coming to an end, the Gambian people actually wrote a letter, and this is what they said. Your Excellency, the Gambian people desire for such a democratic foundation in the Gambia, which you agreed promised and pledged to deliver to them after 3 years. We send you this petition as members and supporters of that cause to remind you that this is now 3 years, which marks the end of your transitional government. So we want you to go. We are not saying, let's try. No, we don't want anymore.
In a way, I see like we're mixing two issues here. We're mixing an issue of governance in a country, which I'm sure is not that like in the tenure or during the years of Yahya Jammeh, these people of Gambia were doing any much better. They were not. They were still in the same kind of abject poverty. And now we have a new leader who's barely been in office for 3 years, and they're saying, well, we're still not seeing that. So that is one. The issue of governance and how they're running their country and whether the president is living to the ideals that he pledged to live by, right? One. The second thing is the issue of poverty and exploitation of poor people by people who are completely helpless and people who've gone nuts. And this is a global thing. It's not just happening in Gambia. We've seen it happen even in Mombasa. It's been reported in the coastal areas of Kenya.
Of course, but you can draw parallels between the two.
Sex trafficking happens.
You can draw parallels between the two because when you have a government that is not really actually working in terms of its law, where the laws are extremely lax, that's when you're able to see things like this. And the same law then which applies to making sure that people are protected, and some of this protectionism comes with then what you're able to provide for them in terms of the economics of it all. So you can imagine, on one hand, you have people who are extremely poor within a country that a government should actually be providing for them.
Yeah,
the
but
same laws,
poverty
the same
cannot
laws
be eradicated in the world. We have reached a point where let's all agree. We will never be able to eradicate poverty.
No.
Let's just agree. In fact, we've come up with all these
Eric.
SDGs, MDGs.
No, sorry.
We are not dealing with poverty will be there. In terms of inequality, the levels of inequality are going to be reduced or whatever can be addressed. But inequality is going to be there.
We are looking at a country where still the laws and the policies of governance have not been so entrenched that the people are being taken care of. And that is the poverty we're talking about. You will not have an entire town where they're suffering from this one thing. You won't. You will have pockets of poverty, but you will not have it widespread across the board and not be able to point to one section of government that is not doing their job to make sure that this is taken care of. You will be able to point to one agency that is not doing their job in terms of the lax laws that you see protecting its
lax
people.
Laws. It's about what we were discussing, impunity. It's about people not doing their job. Not about the government not dealing with poverty, right?
Well, in terms of not doing your job, then you're not dealing with one thing. That's for sure. If you're not doing your job, then there's something.
It's about corruption.
If you're not doing your job, then there's something that's not being dealt with.
Because this is what the people who trade in this, the sex traffickers, deal with across the globe. When you have people who are being trafficked from one country to another or within certain countries, it's
somebody's not doing their job.
Yes, and
exactly.
It's something else that brings in the whole issue of the world itself and how the world comes up with laws that protect people against sex trafficking.
In the same vein, who do they approach?
My point is actually coming from the global perspective. The world has failed the people of the world in terms of protecting children. These cases of sex trafficking are not just happening in the Gambia. They're not just happening at the coast of Mombasa. They're not just happening in African coasts or in African countries. They're happening in Asia. They're happening in Europe. They're happening in America. We saw somebody who allegedly committed suicide in a prison in America. Very influential person, somebody who had access to high office, somebody who has access to leaders across the globe, who was accused of sex trafficking. Same kind of thing. They were not dealing with mature people. They were dealing with children. It's the same thing that we're talking about. So when
they did not negotiate with the children. They didn't negotiate with the children to buy them.
But Eric,
the world is failing. The world is failing to protect this kind of cases.
Even if it's widespread, the Gambian case is unique in this sense. A lot of the trade that you speak of is clandestine. It's saying people keep a lid on it. It's secretive because the laws against it are also very punitive. You're caught. Clearly,
there's a problem.
Yes,
so people do it in hiding.
This one is not in hiding. This is really the whole point.
According to the story that we've read.
Well,
the same
do you have a story that tells us the contrary?
Same kind of publications that have gone around, in the case of exposing this kind of sex trafficking at the coast of Kenya, they show even pictures, same way, as if we have an absence of law.
Eric, the stories
What's the difference?
Talk about the same thing, but they're different in this sense. The issues we have at the coast There are attempts to hide it. It isn't out in the open. And you don't hear of children being sold. Or do you?
Yes.
You of
Yes,
cases?
yes.
How often has it been in our papers of children being sold at the coast?
The case is just like this is one story, right? This is
No, it isn't one
No,
story.
it isn't one story. It's a collection. It's a
It isn't
collection
one
of.
story.
It's a
How many-
collection
It's
of
many
stories.
stories.
Spanning how many years? How many stories have you quoted just now? I thought you quoted just one
I
story.
quoted one. I quoted
but
one
that's what I'm
story,
saying.
but it is one of a collection of many.
It's
Yes.
a trend that they have
It's a
seen
trend
over
that they
time.
have
It's
seen over time.
the same thing I could tell you about the Kenyan coast. You could talk about one story with a trend of stories that have talked about people who are selling their children. And the coast, hapa kwetu, Mombasa.
In
Mombasa
a
ni
unique
hapa,
interview,
pwani.
Lamin
That
Fati, the
parents-
nationwide coordinator of the Little One Safety Alliance in the Gambia, reveals that each female and male vacationers are concentrating on African minors. Intercourse is affordable in my nation, and kids are being bought for as little as $150 or simply over £2 in your foreign money. A few of the mothers and fathers know their youngsters are being abused. They usually settle for it as a result that they're so determined for meals for their bellies. Others are too naive to understand. They assume the Westerner is paying their payments and serving their boy or girl out of the kindness of their hearts, whereas in actuality, they have dangerous intentions. This is not one case. This is somebody who runs an organization for the safety of these children. Over and over and over again.
Yes.
It's not hidden. It's out in the open. They're walking on the beach. They're having dinner. 50-year-old man having dinner with an 8-year-old girl, because it's now something that, as far as he's concerned, he's bought and he's fine.
I agree with that. And what I'm trying to tell you is the same kind of reporting is done when it comes to Kenya. That it's done openly. So where you'll see an old man walking around with a young girl along the beach.
A 9-year-old.
Yes.
A 9-year-old
In
girl in
Kenya.
Mombasa.
In Kenya.
Eric,
And-
a 9-year-old girl,
In
8-year-old
Kenya.
girl,
We even
In
have,
Kenya.
toddler on the beach.
IOM reports and all those other things talking about
Please,
addressing
please,
this kind of
please.
things.
Not
I
this
want
age,
reference.
Eric.
Shortly.
Not
let
this
Eric,
age.
let Eric
Shortly.
do
And-
his whatever. Let him give us the reference. In
And-
Kenya.
And what they
No.
do is they talk about even approaching the parents and asking the parents, why are you allowing your children not to go to school, but to end up with this kind of, in this kind of situation? And the parents will say, it's because I don't have any more. I cannot afford to feed them. I don't have means to actually bring them up.
So then it's true. It's not
when
the
they go
reporting.
out there, what? It's
So
a
it's true.
reporting.
Okay, so it's okay. Mm-hmm.
It's reported that way. What are you saying? What
You're
are
saying
you
the parents actually say, according to the report.
According to the reports. The stories say, the parents say that we have allowed our kids to go out there. We have given these kids to these people. We have allowed it to happen. And those stories even have photos
7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old children in Kenya.
in Kenya.
In Mombasa.
In Kenya.
Wow.
I'm waiting for that.
And this is
evidence.
not the only one.
I would love to see that too.
Let's continue the conversation. I'll quote them.
Okay, so what we're saying now essentially is that I think we've gotten, when we look at countries like this who unfortunately don't have ways of recourse because the laws are actually quite lax in terms of what is allowed or not. That's why you'll see such wanton behavior out in the open. And of course, at many times you have to point back to then who is responsible for the protection of citizens and to say, really, then what should happen? Absolutely, yes, should they clamp down on this? But then it also gives credence to the fact that impunity allowed over and over and over again is going to cease. These are some of the consequences of what you see. Because we talked about eating your seed. This is it, literally. You get to the point whereby you have to eat that which you are made up of. And then what do we have left? Then what becomes the collective profile for countries around the world where we see that impunity has been allowed to reign? People are going to basically consume themselves. And this is what is happening.
You know, there have been reports on this, and there's one which even quoted, they said, it was a report, they said by UNICEF, that 1/3 of girls under the age of 12 in Mombasa were involved in prostitution. This is nonsense. This is
You're
bunk.
disputing it.
I won't even give. Do you know what the population of Mombasa is? You're saying 30% of girls under that age are in prostitution. 30%. Where on earth is that possible? No. Think. 30%. You're saying, in essence, that 30% of the families who live in Mombasa have allowed their children who are under the age of 12 to go into sex trade. And someone assumes that this is true. That's alarmist reporting.
There you go. So it's a report. That's exactly what I've been saying. You will find this kind of reports everywhere in the world. That, some of them are true. Some of them are pointing to a truth. Some of them have been added some elements of untruths. Right?
What these things
they will talk
Eric,
about. They will talk about. The fact of the matter is that there is some form of exploitation.
That one,
Sexual
without a shadow
exploitation,
of a doubt, exists.
right, of children.
And that the numbers are increasing, there is no doubt.
It's true.
That there are people who sell children, there is no doubt.
And that it's not done in such a secretive manner is also in no doubt. It's actually done openly. In some cases,
it isn't
where people
open. It isn't overt.
It's not as overt.
It's clandestine.
It's not as overt as going to a market and saying I have 5 children, pick one. No. It's overt in the sense that if you go to that community, you'll ask them, they'll tell you. They'll tell you so-and-so's child has gone.
In this case, in the Gambia, what we're looking at is that they actually do this with the blessing of their parents.
Yes.
Because they feel that if the Westerner, the Mzungu per se, has come and has paid a certain amount for this child, then that they're going to be taken care of later on. It's the same thing that we see, again, the Gambia, with a large percentage of the individuals who want to cross the Mediterranean to go to Europe coming out of this same Gambia, who would rather deal with the dangers at sea than stay in the country and deal with the economic hard times that they are facing. It's the same concept that we look at now. Parents ready to sell their children than have to deal with having to feed them because they just don't have. It's the same concept that can be applied there across the board.
Yes.
Now, in terms of what government has put in place to make sure that they're protecting their people, or at least providing for them. Remember, we talked about what the government is supposed to do for you. It goes across board. It goes across board, no matter what country it is that you're living in or operating in. Now, they have certain things that they're supposed to do which they are not doing. The money that is supposed to go around the country, you can imagine 2.1 million people. How much is it that you're going to use to feed your people?
How much do you
still,
have?
even that, exactly, even that is they're not able to do. But still, you see the money is in the hands of a few, and you have government officials over and over again rocked with scandal, misappropriation of funds, mismanagement of funds, whereas the people are suffering. They would rather sell their children. Let that sink in for a minute. They would rather sell their children. They would rather cross a sea that they don't know what it holds in front of them than continue to live in that country. That's how bad governance, that's what bad governance does to a people. They would rather sell what's literally their seed or face the sea. And those, we talk about the consequences. We talk about the consequences of impunity. These are some of the things that we see live for us to see and understand here. It may not be here in Kenya in the way in which it's happening there, but these are one of the consequences. And when things begin to deteriorate, they get bad a lot quicker than they do get good, isn't it?
Look,
things get worse much faster than they get better.
For selling babies. It's known as a market where you can sell babies and they go for $2,000 to $3,000 per baby. The people who prefer male children, those are babies. Now, what isn't clear is whether they're selling these babies to pedophiles, whether they're selling them to people who want children. That isn't clear. But that trade exists. That is true. But what also exists that there are organizations who survive and who get their funding from providing alarming figures. If you say there are 100,000 children under the age of 12 who practice sex in Mombasa, and if I ask, okay, please explain to me how you arrive at this figure of 100,000. Why do I say this? They are trades within trades. That they're sex trade, yes. That they are pedophiles, yes. That there are people who trade in children, yes. That there are people who benefit from reporting such things, and that the higher the number, the more they appear to be doing their job, yes. So, Eric, if I get you right, you're saying that the story in Gambia falls into which category?
It has been an exaggerated case, right? So, yes, indeed, this happens across the globe, right? There are cases of sex trafficking, especially involving children. This is rampant. It's rampant in the Gambia, yes, because of the poverty levels. You can look at it and see the correlation. Poverty levels and high incidences of this.
All reports always point at poverty.
Always going to end there. That's why we even talk about, when we talk about the coast, we're not talking about the affluent areas of the coast. It's those people who don't have enough means, right? This happens across the globe. What I'm saying is that this report always focus on, this country is so bad, it's so negative that, people are not taking care of their children. The children are being exploited. We forget who is exploiting. These tourists who come here, where do they come from? They come from other parts of the world. Is there any action that's taken on them? Is the world actually doing enough to curb the spread of sex trafficking and child trafficking? It's not.
This is interesting because we talk about youngster abuse, and it's actually been seen as endemic according to UNICEF. Now, understand the global body dealing with children affairs.
Yes.
Okay. And the place 60% of the 2.1 million inhabitants of the Gambia. That's 1.9 million people reside beneath the poverty line. Okay. Early analysis.
What percentage?
They say 60% of the 1.9 inhabitants.
Actually, they should be clear. Those who live, the figures in the urban area is something like 48%. The figures in the rural area is something like 70%. Yes.
Okay, so based on that, pedophiles typically pose as charity employees and good Samaritans to allow them befriend poor households. UNICEF has warned that the Gambia is one in all Africa's high locations for younger intercourse tourism. You could call it terrorism. The Gambian authorities, in the meantime, have tried to crack down. And in 2013, they launched new guidelines permitting them to grab resort properties if youngsters are knowingly abused on the premises. So we're not looking at something that's sensationalist reporting. We're looking at something that has actually become endemic in this country until global authorities, government has actually tried to step in and do something about it. And they said that they were going to impose hefty fines. They were going to they're going to impose stiff sentences.
On who?
To pedophiles.
Who were caught within the Gambia.
And so you can understand, this is not something that was made up somewhere.
Okay.
This is something that they have seen. It is clear.
Pause. Many African customs don't have these age limitations that our laws and constitutions have. Marrying off a girl at 14 is fine by them. Some marry them even at 12. Depending on what sort of cultural laws they have. Some, a lady is married, passes away, a replacement. And if the replacement available is 9 years old, they're taken to the family and allowed to grow up.
That's totally different in this case.
No.
Because here they're actually giving money and they're saying, better for them that they... In terms of, it's a problem.
Sometimes the interpretation of the assessors who come up with these reports also is skewed. Right, so they're just looking at
a 14-year-old is a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old is a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old is a 12-year-old.
Just looking at this is a child
for whom money was regardless. For whom
Do you know why I bring in culture?
For whom money?
Dowry.
For whom money? $2.
That's what they'll consider it.
I'm not saying in any way that what you're saying is not true. I am simply bringing in an element that we should look into in the discussion because it influences that thinking. If communities allow girls to be married below the age of 18, let's just start there. Then, if somebody provides, remember, prospects, and you're talking about poverty being the motivator, the engine here, and somebody provides something that the family sees or feels would alleviate the poverty, even if for a short while. They're not looking for the child already exists.
Right, sure, but you must understand we're looking across board and we're talking about toddlers, we're talking about babies, we're talking about, even older children for whom there was an exchange of money. So we're not even looking at the cultural traditional practice of marriage, wherever a young girl is being handed over.
The reason why I'm asking this question is because we've taken the view that when these children are sold, the predators, these vultures in human form, present themselves as pedophiles. They don't.
No, they don't.
They don't come to you saying, "I'm looking for a sex tool."
This is what we are saying.
They actually come and say, "I'd like to help your family."
They don't. That's the thing.
They
don't even come
presenting
as wolves
themselves as
dressed in
good
sheep's
people.
clothing.
Benefactors.
They come and they basically say,
benefactors.
"Yes, we can help. How much today? How much?" Because we're talking about something that actually can be akin to the black market in terms of selling children. So they don't come and say, yes, I'm going. They actually come with the promise of giving your child a better life, but they're actually being used for something else.
They
Unfortunately,
come with shopping. It's basically a bag of unga and rice.
Even
and
that
sugar.
they don't come with. In these cases,
it's worth
they come with £2.
It's worth 400 bob.
Yeah,
that kind of small shopping. So you come with a small shopping to visit here and say, oh, so and so, let's go.
That's point number one. The issue of the babies and the toddlers. That goes beyond bizarre.
It's ridiculous
in my mind. And clearly from that report, this is what they're reporting. But significantly, let's talk about sexual debut. At what age do you think that, as it's reported by people who understand, like UNICEF et al., what do you think is the sexual debut of a place? Say, like Kenya. What do you think it is?
Oh, it's easily 8-9 years old.
Precisely. Now, what the report state is that it's usually with a child who is older, not a grown-up, an older child.
Yeah.
Now, by our laws, until they change it, it means that, yes, that
A
child,
15-year-old.
yes, with a 13-year-old, that boy is going to get himself jailed.
Yeah.
Is that not so?
It seems.
Now, you tell me, if that is the age of debut, and then you have the exposure that we make available to the young through social media, through TVs, through the internet, through God knows what, and all you need is a phone, nothing more. Okay? No censorship there. You're talking about, I'm not talking about the toddlers. I'm talking about that age that we speak of going forward. Because of the exposure and because of the information that is available to them, you're not talking about a group of people who are completely oblivious or innocent to issues surrounding sex.
These are children who are coming from families who will take £2. So can you imagine that they don't have in terms of how far their
So they don't have
exposure
access
will
to all
reach?
this.
By the way, there's a reason why I'm bringing this discussion, all right? I have been involved in a study that dealt with, it was actually hygiene, behavior, sexual behavior and hygiene of men. But in talking to men, we also got to talk to young women because these young men are not having sex with themselves, all right? Yes, there were young women involved. And one of the things that I found interesting was they mentioned in passing that if you go to the areas we live in, which is the poorer rent districts within Nairobi, this is Nairobi.
Yep.
Let's say there's a parent who owns a kiosk. Said, what you will find is their prettiest daughter is the one who will be put in that kiosk after school. With the full knowledge that the pretty girl will attract people.
Attracting customers.
They know. They will not question if this girl comes home with more money than the sales that have taken place that day. They will not question. What do you think you introduce into the mind of this child? I'm simply saying this. There's something very wrong in the Gambia that needs to be sorted as there is in Kenya. The coast has been highlighted, but as in Kenya. But there's also a culture where parents do not query their children. They don't ask. A child has more money than they can possibly have, and you know very well they're unemployed. You do not ask. And I'm not talking about 20-year-olds. No. I'm talking about young people who are under the age. No, I'm not even forgetting 18, under the age of 16. Now, we can blame these tourists all we like, and we can blame the poverty all we like. Let's focus on the morality of our people and how it is we have decided to handle matters. Because by the time someone gets to the point where they feel they can sell their child, it isn't a question of just money. Because I'm sure you can find people who are just as poor as that person and they're not selling their children.
But then this is also not, it's widespread. It's actually global.
Precisely.
So the issue
But
of...
in the West, think about it. Are they sold, or are these people who
They're
are
taken by
abducted?
force.
Or what is it? Their culture is not the same as ours. Ours, they keep blaming poverty. And I'm saying, let's pause that poverty narrative for a while and look at what the turn that our morality has taken and how it is we think it is okay to encourage these things.
But I'm thinking in those countries where you'll find the highest reason is because of poverty, that issue will emerge.
Because then you have the same people who are crossing the Mediterranean for the same reason. You'll have
that
some
issue
people who will
emerge.
not
If
cross.
you go to Asia and you
some people who will
find
cross.
in those poor countries of Asia, the issue will emerge. The parent actually allowed their child to go. They chose to look the other way.
My friend, in Asia, it's not even a moral issue. I don't even think they think it's moral. Some of it, this is where I brought in the issue of culture and saying, look, there are people who do these things, right? Selling children, for many communities, it's never been an issue. But it was knowing that child will be better looked after. The sexual issues and the sexual evils we speak of were never a point of discussion. It's a new entrant into this particular evil trade.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. And we continue with the conversation, and we'll open up the phone lines as well. That's 0719 012 600. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Things looking a little bit better in different parts of the city, but Mombasa Road and Waiyaki Way are not cooperating this morning, unfortunately, trying to look at what the roadblock, pun intended, actually is, in this case, because nobody is moving. A little bit better than it was about an hour ago, but hopefully that will clear up, because now we have it, blocked from about Bellevue towards the city centre. Everything else seems to be a little bit smoother now. It's still a bit crazy on Langata Road today. Of course, the question is, why is it so bad? Somebody might be going somewhere, but we'll find that out shortly. But for now, it's looking better. Traffic hour is officially over, unless something definitely comes up or pops up out of the ordinary. Spice FM KE, let me know if you see something out of the ordinary, or give us a call, 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga and Nduoko, who's brought to the fore the topic of sex trafficking in the Gambia, where many people, the reports are emerging out of Gambia, showing that very many people are actually selling off their children for as low as £2. That's equivalent of about 400 shillings. Children as young as 2 years old, 9 years old, being sold to people who are as old as their 50s and 60s, and they're basically just exploiting them for sex. One of the reasons being given by the parents is because, well, we don't have enough to feed and take care of these children. So we're basically just selling them off and hoping that they get a better life. And Ndu is saying this is an indicator of when a government fails to work for its people and provide for its people.
Well, I mean, this is one of the consequences that you see. And I mean, I'm talking about also, if we look at this combined with what we see about, we talked about the fact that you take your child, you sell your child, you take a 10-year-old, 11, 12-year-old and put them on a dinghy, and you're putting them on the high sea and saying, God be with you as you go. We don't know if you're going to reach the other side, but once you do, at least there's a promise that you will be taken care of. Whatever you'll find on that side, that's the promise you go with. Same concept in their mind, that I'd rather you go than us we can't continue to struggle like this because we're not providing what you need, and we can't do that. There are no jobs, we can't farm. Money that's supposed to be meant for government projects doesn't come. We're not able to access these jobs. Essentially, we can't keep afloat, as it were. The same concept is what they apply. So in this case for them, absolutely. Morality trumps, rather desperation trumps morality in this case, because they're not looking at it right or wrong.
But
they're really looking at it from a point of survival.
Actually, it's a whole scope. That's just one facet of it. How do you explain situations where there have been complaints in maternity where children disappear and you're told your child has died, and when you ask for the remains, you're not shown? There are people who've been arrested in this country, doctors, clinics closed, because they've been involved in this very same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I brought in the issue of morality. What you're saying is just one facet. The other aspect is a morality that went south ages ago. So it's money and how much you can make. And don't discount parents. It may not even be poverty. I'm not saying they may be rich, but it may be, I can trade. And think of the protection that a child owes the parent.
Yeah.
When it gets to the point where the parent feels that actually it is really not necessary for me to have this child, but I'd rather have the money. The argument is so that I can look after the other children. Let's start from first principles. Family planning has been taken to the most basic level where anyone can access it. So now, if you have children, it isn't as though you can stop. But again, that's someone's personal choice. For every person who tells me they have children that they cannot look after, I will tell you others I'll give you examples of 10 who are in a similar situation, if not worse, and haven't sold a child. So, what are we dealing with? A mishmash of issues? Is it a moral issue? What is it? Is it just an economic issue? Poverty, we've always had poverty. if societal norms have broken down, where societal structures that ensured that those who didn't have in our society were actually looked after, or societal norms without having been written down, mandated that you looked after those who are unable in your society, if those have broken down and have completely been dismantled, then yes, it's a contributor.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And this is another thing that we're looking at now in terms of what used to be the norm, whereby there was an element of protectionism, just does not happen anymore. At all. So yes, definitely it is a contributing factor in these cases that we see. Something that is so widespread has been reported globally and used, and the Gambia being used as a poster child for this, because obviously this is not something that started in 2020. It's not something that was reported.
It's not even something that has started in this century.
I mean,
this is a practice that has been there since time immemorial.
But talk of odd
looking
cultures.
Looking at these towns, then specifically, especially when you had the crumbling of some big tourist organizations like Thomas Cook, etc., etc. So it was a free for all. Basically, anybody could come in and do whatever they wanted.
It was unregulated.
To do. It was unregulated, and even when government said they were going to come in and step in and introduce stiff penalties and strict guidelines, even that did not happen.
It didn't have the capacity.
Absolutely,
But
not.
also, when did
Even
it start?
if they
Because
did
what we are
have the
reacting to
capacity,
here
even if
is
they
it
did have
being
the-
highlighted.
I think so.
It is being highlighted.
It's just
It
being
has
highlighted
been-
now. It has been there for.
No, it has been highlighted previously, but now the numbers and the numbers that they're seeing, and in terms of the wanton abandon when it comes to the supposed guidelines that were set out by government to be followed are not being followed, is actually something that should raise eyebrows.
Remember,
and
there are
furrow
cultures
brows.
where people maim their children so that they can be beggars.
Yes.
There are cultures where people sell their wives. I mean, you're talking about bizarre cultures.
So here we are, where we're saying that the want of money then trumps everything else.
And that's why I was bringing the issue of the global community. You see, the global community sits back and watches. So they just prepare reports. We read reports. The reports are tabled at the UN Security Council, in some cases, even the UN General Assembly. We discuss the issue of human trafficking and sex trafficking every year in, year out. When you see people being arrested and being taken to global courts on issues of sex trafficking, it's just, they get a slap in the wrist. And then we talk about, these cartels, these East European cartels, because they are the traffickers are also the same ones who do arms dealing. They're the ones who do all these manner of illegal businesses. But no,
You are right, because
they actually we have seen in the last couple of years, we've seen people who are seriously influential. They are not criminals.
I'll give you an example.
mentioned-
Again, out of the same
being
Gambia, there
mentioned
was an
in sex
individual
trade.
with the help of the United Nations, of course, specifically being UNICEF. Just one example. There were several, but one example, and it was actually reported in some of the major dailies in Europe, talking about the fact that this one gentleman who was then accused having of course, being a pedophile, and the one man, 6 cases out of the Gambia, was then sentenced to 3 years in jail in a Norwegian court. The same president of Gambia in 2018, Adama Barrow, was determined to pardon this man, asking the Norwegian government to pardon him for causes which have, until now, not been defined. Now, because of public outcry from the Gambians themselves, they now said, no, we cannot allow this to happen. And the president, who is supposed to be protecting them against this kind of thing, was looking to pardon this man. So here you are, where a government should actually be, these guidelines that should have been put in place to protect these people, how strong are they? These stiffer sentences that we're looking for, where are they? So in terms of actually protecting the people, okay, let's say that poverty caused all of this, and this is where you are in a state of complete anarchy when this is going on. All right, protect us at this point. Even then, that cannot happen.
This is where the union of the world, the United Nations and the rest, the global community comes to protect the people, the vulnerable people. It doesn't matter whatever country they come from. Protect the vulnerable globally.
Eric,
when the global community does not do this, let's not go back and start saying, what happens in the
within
Gambia.
their own borders, they're unable to actually prevent it.
Yeah.
Within their own borders. And among their people, how much interest are they going to take in our people? That's something that we must take an interest in, not them. They are not going to take an interest. Sex trade?
No.
People aren't dying, people aren't being killed, and even if they're being killed, that is never their priority. It never is. It has to be our priority.
You see, the reason why it's a global priority is because those predators are also not the nationalities of this particular countries.
They could go somewhere else.
These people that we talk about, the people who come to the coast, they're not Kenyans. The people we're talking about in the Gambia, those are Britons, right?
No, Eric.
From other
Eric,
countries.
From across
the globe.
Europe
It's
specifically.
tourists.
Eric, when you look
And
at
we know that these tourists are coming from our country to go to those countries, and it has been reported
Eric,
that
when you
we
discuss
have
these
many
matters,
cases of pedophiles operating in this.
it's not just the people who are pedophilia practitioners, but those who also enable it. It's in the absence of one, the other is not really very possible. Okay. If you didn't have a peddler or somebody who makes it possible for pedophiles to actually have easy access to these young children, it wouldn't happen. The point I'm trying to make is this. This is not a case where you just pick on one person. No, it's a trade. There's a whole group of people at every stage in this trade. Everybody's culpable.
There's a chain.
Everyone is culpable.
One of the reasons why you see people like Bosco Ntakamba and the rest being taken to the ICC at The Hague is because, one, they used child soldiers, people like Liberia's Charles Taylor.
Sierra
The
Leone,
international community is looking at what have you done, right? So you don't have the capacity for whatever reason. Either you are unwilling or you are unable, you are completely incapable of dealing with it locally. So we as the international community need to protect the vulnerable, in this case the children of Sierra Leone, of Liberia, of the DRC, and ensure that the people who are exploiting them are brought to justice. Same thing should happen at this global level to deal with sexual predators. This is what we need to do. Because
we'll
come up with a report and say, the Gambia, and people in the Western capitals will be sitting back and saying, this is so wrong.
It's interesting that you
Look at the
say
way-
that
look
because,
at the Gambia.
because a
They have
12-month
this
United
spiritual
Nations
healer as a president for so many years.
Yeah.
Their voting system was using pebbles. They are so backward. They're now selling their children. Oh, come
Pebbles
on, these
work
people.
quite fine, actually.
They did cowrie shells and pebbles, but hey,
And here we are now. The international community will look at it that way. They
it's
will
interesting
treat
that
it
you say
as-
that because the United Nations actually carried out a 12-month-long investigation into what is happening in the Gambia in 2018, and actually then came back and said and faulted the government of Gambia and saying, come on, in this case, in terms of protecting your people, you should actually be able to do better. And he said, Mr. Barrow actually said that he was conflicted at some point. What do you do? Hereby, we want to protect our people. But just like CT says, at this point, we have parents who are willingly selling their children. So what do we do? Is there supposed to be some kind of blanket law that we set out by the government in terms of what you can or cannot do with your children? Whom are yours, by the way? They don't belong to the government. They're yours. What do we do with them? So here, is he justifiably conflicted? Or is it just something that he doesn't want to touch with a 10-inch spoon because he's not sure where his interest then would be?
Let me ask you,
messed up with.
If you're in let's forget Gambia for the moment. If you are to talk about people who are in the Ministry of Gender or Education, do you really think they have an inkling as to the details unless someone presents them with a report of what actually happens? One level. Level two, in their day-to-day lives, do they encounter these things?
No.
So does it form part of the daily reality? No. So if you present a case like this, remember the journey they have to travel. From their own reality to this reality, it's a long journey. It will not be in the list of priorities unless it touches them. Why has the drug problem continued? Because for most people, it doesn't touch them. They relate to it as something you read, something you hear, or a movie you watch, Narcos or whatever it is.
You're only likely to see a change or a shift in that kind of attitude when the problem comes closer home.
And this is one of the things where you find someone like the governor of Mombasa has had fingers pointed to him. Forget the allegation, the accusations that he had. But there is a drug problem at the coast. And people ask, what have you done to alleviate this particular problem? Some of these marauding gangs, many people claim that they've been influenced by drugs. People don't behave that way unless they're more or less out of their minds. Now, and the story goes on, but why is it that it isn't tackled as a serious issue, as an epidemic? Because for most people who have the mandate of tackling it, it doesn't touch them on a daily basis.
It's not their issue.
No, they can't even relate to it on a daily basis. It's far removed. If you talk about drugs, they'll think of the local madman who you're told smoked cannabis sativa until his head fired. That's as close as they get to drug addiction. Beyond that,
Out of touch with reality.
Completely.
0719 012 600. Join the conversation now. That's 0719 012 600. Or you can post your comment on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter at Spice FM KE. It's 9:45. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru. The 80s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4.
And the conversation continues right here, Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga Nduoko. We're discussing child trafficking, with this particular case being the Gambia, but also taking it globally. It's also here in Kenya. It's in Tanzania. It happens in other African countries. It happens in other parts of the world, like in Asia, where you've seen cases of child trafficking and sex trafficking.
Let me ask you a question, and it's been asked. What then does one do? You see, what if we didn't have tourists coming to this country? What would happen?
That's a big question, because then a large part of the economy fails. And the same thing,
No,
if
it won't fail.
you think that
No,
it doesn't
I know.
contribute,
I know.
then why
It's a
is
big contributor
it's a big
to
contributor to,
foreign
the economy?
exchange.
But the economy will not fail. We had situations where advisories were leveled at this country, and for the longest time, the country depended on local tourists, believe it or not.
But there was a huge impact.
Of course, there was an impact and there was adjustment. There's a point I'm trying to make here. Countries that take issues seriously. The entire month of April is a month of remembrance in Rwanda. No parties, no hanging out, nothing. Let me just repeat it.
Yes.
No good time. Why? So that you
It's a
can
time
have
to reflect.
Precisely.
For 30 days.
Reflect. Believe me, you will reflect. It's like you've been taken to a place where you can detox. You sit, you think. You go about your business, but nothing to do. From there, you go home. Now, why am I saying this? I use an extreme example and said if we didn't have tourism, let's say we didn't have tourism for 2 months, gives us time to judge what sort of impact it would have and whether this sex tourism would go down.
How would it work in an economy like Gambia, that they look at 59% of the economy coming from tourism, actually, because of
59% of the economy coming from the economy only? They don't
From
have
tourism.
From
Yes,
tourism.
wait, they don't have anything else in the country. The
Well,
They
farms,
do have.
They do.
don't
It
have-
comes. That's what I'm saying. 59%.
You want us to take the drastic
tourism.
measure of
No.
make sure that there are no tourists coming in.
There's a point I am getting at.
All right,
here.
let's get to that point. Well, first, let's hear from Sami calling in from Magarini. Good morning, Sami.
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
morning to
Sammy.
Yes, I'm fine. Actually, I appreciate that you have brought this point of a discussion of child trafficking. And I think we should actually talk mostly about cost.
Yeah.
Cost is where this thing is so immersed that every child actually wishes to go abroad. And if there is any place in this, any part in this country that people have gone to abroad, is cost. People have passports. At least about 10 people. One has about 10 of them have passports. And actually, we know that in most of the time, people who used to go to abroad were actually going to made for further studies and whatever. But here, it's a norm. So I think we have what we call statutory rep law. And I don't know if the government is actually considering that, or they did away with that law. I think they should be actually reverse and say that whoever is found actually working with a child, underage child, should be actually committed, and this should be an offense and should be imprisoned. But as the case stands now, it seems that we are all actually happy about this, and we seem to claim that it's because of poverty that people are actually involved in this such a illicit acts. So I think the government should take steps and make sure that they
This
protect
doesn't
our
happen.
children from being taken away. Shukran.
Sami, have you heard of cases
Yes.
where parents are the ones who are actually involved in selling off their children?
Yeah, and of course, it's not about now, even in ancient times. In 1970s and backwards, people used to sell their children, but they do not actually sell them. But they say, okay, you give us 1 guinea of maize. Once this child grows up, we shall hand over to you. And that was what used to be. But now it's about cash. You give me cash, I give you the child. And also we know during our time that a child could be married after circumcision. But now because they are being married at any time, and the biological time age is 12 years old, but the statutory law says 18 years. So this is where the conflict comes in.
I see. Thank you very much, Sami. Have a good day.
All right. Thanks. Same to you.
Thanks, Sammy.
Sompan to the coast. So you're talking about you are leading us somewhere.
I am giving extreme examples to say that these governments have no intentions of seriously dealing with the problem.
No.
That's really the point I am trying to make. Because if you did, then you would take drastic measures to deal with a serious problem such as this one. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there would be something then you would be able to do to say, look, okay, if we're looking at 59%, then we're ready to take a 59% dip in our economy, then to take care of our children. Because if the hue and cry is coming from the international community, it's coming from certain people in the country, and it's actually something that the world has taken notice of because it's happening in such rampant form, then perhaps we need to actually do something about
But
it.
you also have got to be cognizant of what the people want. As a government, you cannot do things in absence of looking at the people's sentiments.
Which is why he says it was compounded for him.
If the sentiments of the people are, well, we are not having a problem with this. This is our way out, then really, you as a government coming in to come up with some edict. So for real.
Does the government seek our consent when it servants robbers? Do they come and say, well,
by the way, this
particular month, this is the plan we have for you. We want to steal X billion of shillings from this. No, Eric. There are certain things.
You see, they'll come and justify to you that, this was stolen by a few thieves. It's not the government. When a government comes up with an edict, it has to actually ensure that
in this country, Eric, the sort of money we talk of are so vast. That's not money you steal in a day.
You get buy-in. For example, people have complained so much about people going to the Middle East for work, right? Many other people have said you should stop. The government should stop anybody leaving to go and work in the Middle East.
The government should have its own agency that you can have verified,
such kind of things,
etc. Right.
But the market, what do the people say? The people say, no, this is a place where we can go and find work.
I agree,
so
Eric.
Regulate it in a way that works for us.
The Mediterranean, or whatever it is.
Governments have told their people,
yes, but
don't.
They go. That isn't the point I am raising, Eric. I am saying that if the government, any government wants to seriously stop a problem, pedophiles in the West are registered. You are known. All you need to do is ask for a list of known pedophiles in your country. Let's start there. So you tell your security forces, immigration, these people are not to enter this country. If they have a criminal record, they are not to enter this country. They can't form the bulk or the majority of tourists. No.
But for now, the way it is, we had a case, I can't remember, I think it was in Nyeri, where we had a missionary who lived there for X number of years with his wife and basically was doing the same thing with children.
Yep.
But he was allowed to enter into the country by virtue of the fact that he was okay.
He said he was
white
missionary.
and he said he was a missionary. So, okay, visa, come on in, stay here for as long as you need
Adequate
to.
vetting wasn't done.
Absolutely. And I think that there's certain things that can be done when we're looking at the protectionism of citizens in different countries. There are different things that can be done if we're serious. Unless, of course, we're not serious. The same thing that we're talking about, if we're serious about fighting impunity, if we're serious about fighting corruption, there are certain things that can be done. Unless, of course, you're not willing to do it.
I agree.
And that's a totally different story.
I agree. If you'll also agree with me that this needs to be a global effort.
You want me to agree with you?
Oh, yes.
So you only agree with me if I agree with you on that?
only to the extent that it is not localized. So we don't just leave the problem and say, oh, Kenya, deal with your issues. No, because Kenya dealing with these issues, Tanzania may not deal with the same issues.
Oh, I think
but
there need
globally,
to be several multilateral
that
agreements.
We have to have an end to sex trafficking and ensure that all governments, for example, why do people ratify conventions? Why do we come up with conventions? Conventions are so that people around the world agree on a certain way of doing things. Ensure that now we enforce all these conventions. Ensure
I do agree that certain multilateral conversations
take people to court. It doesn't matter whether you're Prince A or Prince B. If you've been mentioned in a case of sex trafficking or child trafficking or pedophilia, action should be taken against you. It doesn't matter whether you're royal or not. Do you agree?
On that I agree.
Oh, then we are in agreement.
I'm glad I was able to do that for you this morning, Eric.
In that case, we are in agreement.
Eric, I'm in agreement with you in theory, and it can only remain theory, because the practice of it would be to get these international players to actually consider what is important to us, important to them.
Or to even sit on the same table first of all to have the conversation.
They can sit. Sitting they can do, because that doesn't cost much. But unless what we're discussing can be proven to be of great importance to them, it will not actually see the light of day, and neither will they bother with it. They will bother if it is important to them. If it isn't important to them, they will not.
Or if it's detrimental to them.
Yes.
Okay.
Then they'll bother. If not, they won't.
So let's have some updates. Babu Owino has been presented in court this morning. He's already appeared there. I think he's already in court. So we're waiting to get the updates of that. What charges are going to be preferred against him? What is he going to say? Is he going to be charged today or not? How it goes on beyond that. Also, the University Senate, the University of Nairobi Senate, has released a statement, has made a statement this morning. They have endorsed the removal of Stephen Kema as Vice Chancellor and supported the Isaac Mbeche as acting VC.
This matter is going to go to court. Let's see how it plays out there.
You're sure it will go to court?
This one will go to court.
Who is likely to take it to court?
If I were
Not Okiya
Professor
Mtata.
Kiama, I would take
I
it
would
to
take
court.
it to court.
Okay.
Yes.
So Professor Kiama is likely to take the matter to court.
Yes.
Let's see also if the Ministry of Education releases a statement. Explain.
You know,
In some
Tell
way,
us.
one way or the other.
You know what we keep saying here is this: one of the benefits of taking matters to court. Any legal process that we have is clarified. If we didn't understand it well, or we said there was something obscure,
If we had
it is
questions,
made less obscure. So
Right.
let the matter go to court.
Lest we forget, the governor of Kiambu, Ferdinand Waitito, their father, has been impeached by the county assembly of Kiambu.
Wait,
Now-
I thought he had been impeached.
Yes.
He had been impeached.
Lest we
yes,
forget.
He's been impeached, yes.
The matter is due to be presented to the Senate. Now, the
Tomorrow.
Senate will be sitting tomorrow to discuss this particular issue. Whether now the Senate agrees with the County Assembly of Kiambu is a matter that we wait to see what happens.
And even if they agree, there'll be the matter of the court agreeing with them should the matter go to court.
Should Ferdinand Waitito, their father, take the issue to court?
Yes.
Right.
Say goodbye for the day.
We hope the locusts will leave Kenya by the end of this week.
And let the discussions continue.
Let the discussions continue on our social media platforms. Spice FM KE, Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter. And you're saying that you hope the locusts find their way out.
This week.
Wishful thinking.
Well, since we didn't do anything about it, they might as well leave, right?
they'll look for a way out. They'll definitely end up leaving. The problem is how much.
What will they have left? A wake of destruction.
Yes.
Their
how much
Senate and
destruction.
their council has to agree. When they agree,
Their Senate and their council.
They
have
will
to
tell
agree.
us.
When
And
they
then
agree-
their courts, if the matter goes to court, the courts have also to agree.
I think their courts brought them here in the first
First
place.
place. The courts are the ones who said proceed.
We'll see you again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. C.T. Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. Between now and 3 o'clock, you have uninterrupted music. The likes of John Legend and the rest, the Jacksons, Kool and the Gang, Queen, Tina Turner, Jocelyn Brown. Now until 3. And then 3 to 7, the lady herself will be here. Monique with Spice Drive, taking you home. And then, of course, the adults in the room will be with you again today from 7 o'clock to 10 p.m. The adults in the room, who are they, Ndu?
Emmanuel, Eric, and Barbara.
The Duchess of Cornwall.
Oh, right.
Ikolomani,
Ikolomani, brother.
Not Cornwall, not Sussex.
And not
No
Ikolo
longer
Cornwall.
Sussex.
It's just Ikolomani.
It's Ikolomani. The Duchess of Ikolomani, Barbara Mbaka, will be here as well. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.